going live.
Hey, my name is King, or as some of you might know me better, Israel. I've gotten around, but hopefully you recognize me from my own channel, King Tannic. There's a new show coming to the Burnettwork that I think is pretty exciting. Welcome to the Otaku Experience, hosted by yours truly. There is going to be a weekly series where we dive into the news and the world of anime, manga, and whatever the heck else Japan has to offer us. The show will be pre-recorded and premiere on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Time or 5 p.m. Eastern right here on the Burnettwork YouTube channel.
Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude. And let's just cut to the chase. Your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett. And I am Robcasting. And you, from this, the Robservatory, you, imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity fan community here on YouTube, the best fan community here on YouTube. And in a way, tonight's show, a very special show, I have a special guest, is really about how fandom can actually fuel the dreams that you have and you make them come true. I have a very special guest, an old friend, a director, a producer, a writer, and an author. You'll ask, what's the difference? You're going to find out tonight. Mr. Paul Salamoff has written a book called On the Set that's had multiple editions about what's it like to be on a movie set. He's made a Saturn Award-winning indie sci-fi feature called The Encounter that starred Liam Hemsworth. That's right, Liam Hemsworth. I'm not kidding. And would you believe he's written Logan's Run comics? I mean, that alone makes me jelly. But tomorrow, not to be outdone, he has his first novel coming out that's available on Amazon as of tomorrow that you can get. And that novel is called The Silent Planet. And I have him here right now with me, Mr. Paul Salamoff. Welcome to Robservations. Welcome to the Burnettwork. My God, I mean, of all the people I've known in LA, I've known you for a very long time.
It's been a long time.
I just want to point out, I see your Saturn Award. We're both Saturn Award winners. I just want to say, and I would like to dedicate this stream to Dr. Donald Reed and to the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Count Dracula Society.
Yep. I mean, it's pretty amazing. We go back a long way, Robert.
A long way. Well, I would say, L.A., to me, it's a war of attrition. There's a lot of people, I think it was Nicholas Meyer. I'm sure a lot of people said this, but Nicholas Meyer, the director of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, said it takes 10 years to become an overnight success in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And you and I have been here a lot longer than that.
Oh, yeah.
And, you and I have probably known, we've known so many people that gave up. It wasn't easy. and it was something, you know, they couldn't hack, or and this is, I'm not casting dispersions on anyone. I'm just saying it is the life of an artist. I mean, we're not in Paris painting, meeting fabulous people at parties and being penniless, but it can be a very difficult, lonely. I mean, you said before we started, you've written how many screenplays?
35.
35, and how many have gotten made?
4.
Okay,
5?
4 or 5. But you know what? Most people haven't written that many, and most people don't have 4 produced. I've written 4 screenplays, and one of them was produced. So I'm 25%. The other one was almost produced, but we got shut down 2 days before principal, which is what happens. So here's the thing that I mean, like I said, you've written. I mean, I love Logan's Run. Changed my life when I was 9. You wrote a Logan's Run comic.
Yeah.
You've made a film, but here's what I am blown away by. I have always wanted to write a novel, but I don't know if
Yeah.
It's how do you do it? Do I have it in me? And you've done it. You have a novel coming out, and I just want to start and ask you this question: how the fuck did you do it, dude? How did you put that nose to the grindstone and actually tell me the story? Tell me the tale, Paul.
Well, it's interesting because like you, I had the same thing. It's can I do this? You know what I mean? And a lot of times, you just kind of have to go. My favorite stories, one I was very proud of because I just love the characters, I love the world. It was kind of an interesting, very thematically driven story, and I wanted to it was one I wanted to be able to share. And I took a stab at, like, I've written some short stories, and I've been actually in anthologies that have been nominated for Bram Stoker Awards, which is really cool. And I've had some, I've enjoyed writing short stories, right?
Sure.
And I was like, can I do this? Like, same questions, like, am I capable of writing a novel, right? And second, sorry there. And I took a stab at it, right? And it was okay, but it wasn't like, I know it wasn't like where it needed to be. And I've been searching for years to try to find somebody that I could sort of team up with, that I knew I could, had done it before and, could sort of guide me across the finish line. Right. And fortunately, my friend Oren Nichols, who really he completes me. I guess that's the best way to put it. Like, the things I felt I was deficient at, he was very strong at, and the things, vice versa. So it's like this perfect partnership. And, he took what I did and sort of slapped it on the ass, and we sort of worked on it and retooled it, and to the point where, we're ready to present it to the world. And I couldn't be happier with it. I'm very proud of the story.
Well, now we got to get into the process. So how does one it's a daunting task for you.
Yeah.
How do you start? Like I know you said you turned a screenplay into a novel. So you had the story, you'd already gone through it, you'd already beat it out, it already worked as a screenplay. And this happens a lot now. People are translating screenplays into novels and or vice versa.
Yeah.
But take us through, like, when did you decide, okay, I'm pulling the trigger, I'm gonna do this?
It was just one of those things where it was just a story I just wanted to be able to share, and I felt like I don't know if it was ever going to get made as a movie at this point. And I think it was because I had the confidence after doing the short, after doing the short stories, and the fact that they
Right.
were well received, that I felt, I had the aptitude for it. And it's one of those things where my whole thing in my whole life is, you hear this a lot, fake it until you make it, right? That's sort of like a thing in this industry.
And it's true.
Yeah, and it's true. And I mean, that's the thing. I think in every aspect of my career, like, I was self-taught as a makeup effects artist, self-taught as a producer, self-taught as a writer, pretty much. And I was an executive for a while as well, and I had never been an executive before. And it was just one of the things where, just having the confidence in yourself and knowing your limitations and not being driven by your ego and just saying look, I know just enough to be dangerous, but let's give it a try. You know what I mean? It's what's the worst going to happen is I'm going to fail, but I won't know until I try. So with writing the novel, I just look, I teach at New York Film Academy, right? I teach screenwriting and writing comic books and graphic novels. And we always start off, my students, with what I call, vomit draft. A vomit draft.
Yeah.
You just right. You keep, you get as much of the story, you develop as much of the story as you can. And then it's really just sitting behind, your computer and just getting it out there, just from start to finish, just getting the story out there, no matter how messy and sloppy it is and how not set up it is, but just getting it, because to me, writing's rewriting anyways.
Right.
So it's that's when you're shaping it, and that's when you're shaping the story and honing it and polishing it. So with writing the book, it was the same thing. It was you know what? I'm not going to know until I know. And it was I'm just going to try. And, fortunately I was able to get a novel side story, done. So it was just really fuck it, I'm just going to try it.
Well, one of the things I did mention your Logan's Run comic, but you have other graphic novels you've written, and you have been generous enough to allow people, tell people you've made it possible for those watching the stream tonight to get free downloads of your work.
Yeah. So, obviously we want to build a nice list and a nice community, because, Oren and I are planning on trying to do 4 novels a year. We're going to really push ourselves and see what because we're already starting the next one. And what we wanted to do was sort of entice people to sort of join our sort of community and our list. So if anybody sort of just, joins our email community, you're going to get a free copy of both Hired Guns #1, which is my new graphic novel. The paperback's coming out on Monday as well, and Discord #1, which is I got them right here so I can show you. So this is
there. Yeah, there you go.
And there's, I know it's getting it in, and there's Hired Guns. So I'm going to be giving you issue 1 of both of those, just sort of
Okay, so I'm going to put this link right now into the live chat.
Great.
You've generously made this link available, and if you go to here and put in your email and get on the email list, you will get free downloads of both of those. And there is the download link. It is there right now in the live chat. So go there, get your free comics, and
And there'll also be we're gonna have lots of exclusive stuff and newsletters and news and other giveaways and so forth. So there's lots of fun stuff we're gonna be doing with this. So I hope you'll join. We got a lot of stuff on the horizon, which is great.
I'm also putting this link into the description of this show, so it's there now. And if you want to look, you can go right down below into the description and go and get Paul's comics. Also, if you want to ask Paul a question, the super chats and the tip feature are open, but we'll get to those later. But anyway, so I mean, now how long did it take you to write this book?
That was done over a period of time. When I brought Oren on, it actually went pretty quick, because I had a first draft of it to work off of.
Sure.
And he has ghost written a lot of things, and what he was really bringing to it was fantastic, was a lot of like the technological stuff, because I'm more focused on like the characters and the story itself and the world construction, and he was able to really come in there and make it sing, like really just we had lots of discussions about how some of this technological stuff would work, and he has a really great grasp on it. But the original version, the first draft of it, I think if I'm not mistaken, because it was a couple of years ago, was I think it took me like about 4 months maybe, which is slow for me. You know what I mean? Because as a screenwriter,
right?
Like, I'm the guy who's writing scripts like first drafts in a week and a half, doing like a vomit draft in a week and a half, and then spending some time polishing it. But that's because my process is that I sort of develop my stories in my head and see the movies in my head before I ever sit down behind a computer and start typing it. That's why I literally never get writer's block, because I'm sort of transcribing by the time I'm sort of sitting down, behind my computer.
Right. Well, that makes sense. And you've already look, when you're writing screenplays, you have to think on your feet, especially if you're a TV writer. If you're in a room and you're working with a bunch of other writers. Now, what was it like to collaborate?
It was wonderful. Actually, really, really wonderful. Oren, I known for a little bit, and we just jive really well. And that's the thing, is like, I'm not run by my ego. It's not like, oh, my ideas are all the greatest things ever. It's really in service of what
they're not.
Weird, right? It's always in service of the story and what's going to be the best story to tell. And I always tell my students, like, you'll get a great idea when you're excited to go back in your script and make the changes. Like, that's how you've heard a great idea. And the great thing about working with Oren is it's just been absolutely smooth. It's been so smooth and so wonderful. And it's, I would only, hope that people can have the same experience. This was sort of our test thing, is like, oh, can we work together? Because, it's like we've got more stories to tell if it works. And this one could not have gone any smoother. We're both equally proud of this book.
Okay. Well, okay. Let's be honest. Was there any time that the two of you wanted to kill each other?
No. I mean that very sincerely. I'm not, I mean that just 100% sincerely. It's been an absolute dream working with him. I think, look, when you have that mutual respect for each other, then there's no, there's no problem that can't be solved. And we would discuss things. If there were things that, I felt wasn't working, we would discuss it and come up with a solution that we both, and vice versa. So honestly, it's been a really wonderful experience, and I can't wait to do the next one with him. Seriously.
And all right, but now let me ask you this: take us through your actual writing process. Like, what do you do? Do you work separately on your computers? Do you ever get together? And how does that work? What's it like to collaborate on a novel?
Well, Oren's on the East Coast, so he's.
So you're okay.
Yeah. So it has to be done through video chats and so forth.
But I have to say, I edited 24 episodes of a Netflix animated series with the producer and the director, and we did that during the pandemic, mostly through Zoom. And it is like when you're collaborating, depending on how big you want to buy a big screen, and it's like they're in the room with you, and that it does work quite well.
Yeah, it does, because it does feel like, the funny thing is, like, like I said, Oren and I have been friends for a while, and he worked, we have Oculuses, when we golf together, we golf together sometimes, we play games together, and it really does feel like you're in the same room when you're doing that.
Yeah.
And it's, it's great to work out ideas on
Mark Zuckerberg's already conquered your soul, sir.
Yeah, well, actually, what's really funny is the fact that I'm not into sports at all, which is the real irony is, like, I love playing miniature golf, and I love playing, I love sports movies. Don't watch any sports.
Dude, I have to tell you, I am not a sportsman myself. I mean, I ski, but I love sports movies. They're some of my favorite. Now, why do you think that is?
You know what? I've sort of thought about this, is because it's sort of distilled down to sort of, the idea of, and I think this goes for both of us too, is that, we want to succeed. We know it's just right. Even though we're writers and we're creators, and creatives, it's like there's still like skill, and I believe in like the 10,000 hours.
Me too.
I love like the Rocky movies, right? I absolutely. I mean, like literally, like on my desk in front of me right here. Here's my here's my 2 Rocky.
Wow, those are the Hot Toys figures, aren't they?
No, those are the Mego ones.
Those are the new Mego ones. Okay.
Yeah. So
I should know better.
I think yeah, you should. I think the idea of the underdog story, because look, I grew up in Natick, Massachusetts, which is a huge sports community. For those who are into football, Doug Flutie, Heisman Trophy winner, came from my high school. And, this was the Natick High football team was one of the better football teams, and my brother was a jock. And it's like, here I am, a movie geek. I saw Star Wars and Logan's Run when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
In a drive-in. And I was like, okay, I'm a movie person. You know what I mean? I watched Doctor Who and Star Blazers and Star Trek and so forth. And I am a movie geek in one of the big sports communities. And I never liked sports. But I love the idea of being good at something and succeeding.
Yeah, well, and I also think that the thing about sports is there's built-in drama.
Yeah.
And in a way, there's a captain, there's a team, there's a crew.
Yeah.
And a great sports movie is like a great episode of Star Trek in a way. Yeah. And I, some of my favorite sports movies. I mean, I loved my dad. I went and saw North Dallas 40 with Mac Davis and Nick Nolte, and I remember loving the music score. The opening, it's like they're sitting. Nick Nolte has been battered after a Sunday game, and there's like a saxophone or something playing this mournful tune, like doo 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 doo, and it's all like mournful, and he's like, and he's got a cocktail while he's chilling in his ice-ridden bathtub, and I'm like, I relate to this guy. Here's a character I like. I don't know anything about playing football, but I get it, and understanding they're warriors, they're soldiers, and they have a goal that they want to achieve. And I watch Any Given Sunday. I mean, it's Oliver Stone bringing, when he was at his experimental phase, when he was editing with or shooting with different kinds of film formats, whether it was Super 8 or 16 or video, and intercutting all of it. Natural Born Killers, but he did the same thing. We fight for every inch, and Pacino's giving the great speech, or you think about Slapshot or The Longest Yard, or a sentimental film, very Spielbergian, like Field of Dreams.
Yeah. Well,
baseball, Ray.
Yeah, you talk about like warriors, and now one of my favorite. I think the movie that's closest to Rocky is the movie Warrior. One with
right.
Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy, and Nick Nolte was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for that. And I viscerally remember watching that movie for the first time, and they get to the end, and I'm like, the third act, and I'm like, I don't know who I want to win. And I was so emotionally involved, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to feel good either way. Whoever wins, I'm not going to spoil it. You know what I mean? But it was just.
Oh, I know.
Remember that feeling of watching it. And I was like, sitting on my couch and like, I didn't see it in the theater and just sitting on my couch watching it. And then meanwhile, I just saw, Creed 3 yesterday in IMAX, which I highly recommend seeing it in IMAX.
So good.
It's good. And it was great. And I was like getting all emotional and there's something about it. And the irony is that as a writer, I'm known as a horror sci-fi guy, and I write thrillers. I've actually written 2 sports dramas.
Well, I have a friend, Jonathan Rosenthal, who is he works in the industry, but he's a huge fan of horse racing, and he's written a horse racing script that's actually quite good. And because I loved Seabiscuit Another great, and I would love to see it get made. I love sports movies. I have to say, there's the new movie with Woody Harrelson coming out, Champions.
Yeah. Champions, yeah.
Which is about, I mean, it's funny in this day and age. I'm like, okay, so it's a bunch of special needs kids that he's going to coach. I'm like, that's pretty edgy, in this day and age. But I'm like, I got to see it.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for it. And I'm like, oh, that looks interesting.
Yeah, I got to see it. Got it.
But I think that's great because here's the thing. I tell my students, all the time that you got to really think of this as a journey. You know what I mean? Like your career is a journey, and it's not a sprint either. You know what I mean? So I use sports terms. I go, you got to think of it as a long distance run and not a sprint. You know what I mean? Like I'm like constantly saying that, and and I think it's really is true. I mean, it really is true, and you talked about earlier about like people giving up and so forth, and having the long. This is my 34th year in the industry. 34th year in the industry,
dude. Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, my first professional job, the first job I ever had, I was actually hired by two producers. I was in a class at USC. I was in Max Lamb's visiting artist seminar. It was a 2-credit class, and he would bring producers and people in, and I just did research. Before they came in, I'd go to the Academy Library on La Brea, because there was, or on La Cienega, and I would go there, and you'd ask for a movie title, and they would give you like literally clippings from newspapers and Variety. I mean, they literally gave you a manila folder with clippings from the trades, because there was no internet. And so my first job was when they came to class, I had all these questions, and no one else really prepared. And I figured, well, if Joel Schumacher came, George Clayton Johnson came, for 10 weeks, and and who wrote Logan's Run and wrote classic Star Trek and classic Twilight Zone, and so I just asked, and I didn't want to be overbearing. I just asked questions, and they went on. So it was Mark Levinson and Scott Rosenfeld, and they ended up producing Mystic Pizza.
Yeah.
Or they had produced it, and then they had produced Teen Wolf, and they called my professor the next day. They called Max Lamb. They said, we want to give that kid a job.
Oh, that's
all because I was asking questions in class, but not like, listen and tell me. I was like, I'd like to ask you about. You have to know how to be somebody people want to hang out with.
No, that's what it is. I always say that I've gotten more jobs based on my who I was as a person than how quote unquote talented I was. You know what I mean?
Because the people don't know yet. All they know is they like you.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, hey.
And I sort of try to demystify the industry in a lot of ways with that. It's like I've always found it's just a lot easier to be myself and be unabashedly myself.
Yeah.
My office is like yours. I mean, I get the TARDIS console over there. I've got the Dalek, and it's all toys and books and action figures and I mean everything. I mean, the action figures.
The key is all the books, all the things that we've actually read.
Yeah.
And, it's so funny. I've often told this story. I had a meeting once at a pretty big production company. And during the entire meeting, there was a stack of books on this desk that we were meeting around. At the top of the stack was Dan Simmons' novel, Song of Kali.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm a huge, it was his first, he had written
Stinger. I have that book, Stinger. Right? Wasn't that one of
That's McCammon. That's Robert McCammon. No, but it's same era.
Yeah.
So McCammon's a little earlier, but what was interesting was, so Dan Simmons was a guy who went to Harlan Ellison, was teaching a class on writing, and Dan Simmons wrote a story called The River Styx Runs Upstream. And it was published in Twilight Zone magazine. Wow. And based on that, he was able to publish, and I have every you can't see it, but right behind me, I have every single Dan Simmons book in hardcover, and so I'm sitting in this meeting, and after the meeting's over, I can't help. I'm like, are they gonna make Song of Kali? Are they gonna do that? A horror film set in Calcutta? I'm like, and this guy, this executive, and you've met a million of them, I asked him, he goes, "Oh my God, Dan Simmons, he's such a great writer. I mean, his prose is amazing, and he's just an incredible writer. Of course, I've never read any of the books he's written, but I've heard he's an incredible writer." And I'm just like, and I'm looking at this going, and by the way, all the other books underneath Song of Kali I had read, and I'm just like,
I've been there.
I'm meeting here. I'm here with you, trying to convince you to buy my story or get in business with me, and you don't even know what's on your own table.
Yeah, I've been there.
And but that's the industry, and because it's such a weird place to be. And I always say that, I understand from a corporate perspective, on a spreadsheet, they have to hire Ivy League educated people who have master's degrees in business. I get it. That's what a corporation wants. But then those people are the gatekeepers of who gets to make the stories. And now with the budgets going way, 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 way up, the money is on the line, the risk is terrible. And every time somebody says yes to something, they're putting their livelihood, their life on the line, really. So it's very difficult. And the last person they want to talk to is a nerd like us.
Yeah, and what's really funny, this is great, okay? I always tell people that generally when you're going to a meeting at a studio, when you're meeting with an exec, they're basically thinking two things. They're thinking, can I work with this idiot for 6 months? Is this idiot going to get me fired? You know what I mean? If you can, because you're going to be in that meeting, you're not, look, if you're in the meeting, you've already passed. You know what I mean? Because they've read some material and they're intrigued with you. So you might as well go in there and just be yourself, or be, somebody who presents themselves as easy to work with, because they're definitely afraid of getting fired. It's a lot easier to say no than yes, obviously.
Right. But the thing is, and you're absolutely right, they want to know if you're the kind of kook they can handle.
Yes,
but they have to understand that you're the kook that also takes something to the finish line.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? I swear to God, this is the absolute truth. This is the absolute truth. Every time I get sent to a meeting with like a new executive that I've, not met before, and they might not know what I look like, and I might not know what they look like. I swear to God, I do this. I've done this more times than I can think of. I always say, when we're texting, like, when I'm going to be there, I always say, by the way, I'm wearing that pretty red dress you bought me. And I have the little emoji of the woman like dancing in the red dress. And I do that just to see if they have a sense of humor. Because the thing that matters is, like, yeah, they're testing to see if they can work with me, but I also want to see if I can work with them.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I swear to God, I do that. I swear to God, I've done it more times than I can remember, because it just makes me laugh. I mean, I think it's the most silliest thing you could absolutely say to somebody. I'm wearing the pretty red dress you bought me. Because, like, it's like, they don't know what I look like.
The funny thing about it is, I heard a term from a very high-ranking person in Hollywood. Like, you can't get much higher than this person is. And he told me a phrase that I'd never heard before. Uh-huh. And I asked him, I said, what is the real problem with the entertainment business? And this person said to me, it's fraudulent creators. And I was like,
can you explain? Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
And he said, well, there's a lot of people that might have success. They might get one big success, and then they use that to parlay that for power, understandably so.
Yeah.
But what they do is they get these jobs, and they have really no intention to give it their all. And they're half-assing it, or they're having other people work on it for them, and it's fraudulent creation. And then he's in the position where he has to pay for it all. Yeah. I mean, literally pay for it all. Like, as a very, very high-ranking member of the Hollywood community, he's the person that can greenlight things, and then he has to write the checks, and he has to make sure things get done. And when he deals with these people, it's incredibly frustrating, because he's watching them not deliver what they were hired to do. Yeah. And we've all seen it. Whereas you and I mean, we're the scrappy indie dudes. We'll do, you want me to push a dolly? You want me, I'll never forget. I mean, 25 years ago when I directed Free Enterprise, one morning I get there early, and the lighting crew, the gaffers, were already setting up the lights, because we were shooting at a club, the Garden of Eden. You were I don't know if you were there, but you were participating in the film.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I did Wallow voices, and I was in the comic book store.
Yeah, oh, that's right. That's right. You're in the Golden Apple in Reseda.
In Reseda, yeah.
And so when I was there, I asked the guys. I said, "Hey, I'm going to Starbucks," because we're on the corner of La Brea and La Brea and Hollywood Boulevard, and I was going down to Sunset where the Starbucks was. And the guys are like, "Oh no, we don't, you're the director. You know, you." I'm like, "Bruh, I was a PA. I started out as a PA. I'm like, I am going to Starbucks by myself right now. There's 4 of you hanging lights. It's 6:30 in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. Happy to get you the coffee, because there was no one else here, and I'm going. And in and there's a lot of people that want to keep their status or whatever that wouldn't do that. But if you came out of production, I mean, you and I worked for Tony Gardner at Altarian Studios.
Yeah,
special makeup effects 30 years ago. And more than that. And it's all about all hands on deck, especially when you work in the independent world, and that to me is that's what I really believe everybody should come out of that world and ascend upward, because I think one of the big problems with the entertainment industry has always been that those Ivy League educated business people have never actually made a film.
Yeah. And here's the thing is I really could not agree with you more, because here's the thing. When I was a makeup effects artist, I worked on like over 40 films, right?
Yeah.
From the lowest budget, like Roger Corman stuff and, Full Moon, Roger Corman, to like, I worked on Batman Begins and Batman and Robin. Sorry about that. And, a lot of the
Hey, it was a job.
Movies. Yeah. But I worked on like Critters 3 and 4, which, by the way, I could not be more happy for the Kyoto brothers getting their recognition with, Marcel the Shell with shoes on, winning tons of awards, and I hope they win the Oscar for that as well. They're really wonderful guys. So I worked with them on, Land of the Lost and Critters 3 and 4 and Ernest Scared Stupid. But working in the trenches on the lower budget stuff, you maintain that. So when you work on the higher stuff, the higher budget stuff, you understand. The problem is when you only start with on high budget films, then you can't. It's hard to survive and hard to work on lower budget things, because you'd have everything at your fingertips. But like when I worked on Batman and Robin, I mean, everything was there,
right?
But like on Dollman versus Demonic Toys, you know what I mean? I had
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I ended up editing Arcade that Albert Pune was shooting concurrently with Dollman versus Demonic Toys, going from set to set to set. Yeah. And my first editing job for Schweiger was re-editing Arcade with Peter Billingsley.
Love it.
Back in '93.
But
wow, 30 years ago, editing Arcade.
Crazy. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, look, I mean, and I think the proof's in the pudding. With my movie Encounter, right? Which I need.
By the way, let me bring that up. Here is Encounter. It's. Oh, did I say Liam? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said Liam. It's Luke Hemsworth. I stand corrected. I'm so sorry. But Paul made Luke Hemsworth Encounter Liam Hemsworth. Why did I'm sorry I made that mistake. I apologize. But also won an Academy Award for Best Independent Film. What did I say? Did I say Spirit Award?
No, you said
Academy Award. But why not? In our minds, a Spirit Award. A Saturn is, in our world, the Saturn is the Academy Award.
It is.
And, I mean, and to get it from Dr. Reed, and it's, no, Paul, you didn't. You know what? The Academy Award is the Saturn Award in our minds.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And it's behind you. The Saturn is cooler than the Oscar.
Yes, I agree.
I'm just saying.
And here's the thing. What I was going to say was, okay, so we shot our movie. I was helping Augusta, Georgia develop their film community, because they wanted to be able to compete with Atlanta,
sure.
Right? So I've been going down there, and because of my book on the set, I've been
Well, wait, let me bring that up. So you wrote a book that's been now updated called On the Set: The Hidden Rules of Movie Making Etiquette, and now it's in its 4th edition, I guess. Now, explain to people, because I think this is an indispensable book for anybody that wants to work on films.
Thank you.
Tell us at home, what is this book?
Okay, so here's the thing. So when I was working, it's like basically everything you need to know about working on a film set, and
Right.
especially the rules of etiquette, like the rules of etiquette, and then sort of advice from experts. And it's got like well over like 90 people. Like James Gunn is in it, Wes Craven, Gale Ann Hurd, Tom DeSanto, Lynn Shay, Doug Jones, Ed Newmeyer, our Starship Troopers
RoboCop.
and RoboCop, Patrick Tatopoulos, and Greg Nicotero, and Kevin Ross, who is the editor of Stranger Things and so forth. I mean, over 90 professionals, and I update the book every time every time I do a new edition, so it's not just slap on a different. So
Right.
the fourth edition, and it's actually used in film schools around the world, which is really awesome. You know what I mean? But the reason why I wrote it is, I started it, the first edition of it, when I was a makeup effects artist, because I was realizing I was learning a lot. Like, I didn't get taught any of these things, like especially the rules of etiquette, and I was getting yelled at a lot. And I realized, and this is really the most important thing about it, right? I realized that in order to do my job as a makeup effects artist at the time, I still had to know about all the other departments and how they function, so I
Yes.
could work with them. And I looked for books, and there were books on like for DPs and books for PAs, and there were books, but there was nothing that was like a general overview. I'm like, how is this possible? And the thing that really spurred it for me is I was on set, and there was this girl who had just started off as a makeup effects artist. She was really, really green. We were working on a small production, and she had taken a picture without yelling flashing, and the DP had been looking through the lens. And
Oh,
he got really
God.
upset. And like really like yelled at her, right? And she, obviously she was a little shaken by that. And I sort of explained, like, well, you didn't know. And then not like 15 minutes later, she plugged a hairdryer into a hot box without asking the electrician, and he completely lost his mind on her. And she got really upset and basically ran off set. Right, and I don't blame him. That electrician was pretty scary. But I went out to her and I'm like, look, don't let this throw you. You know what I mean? You sort of pick up this stuff as you go. And she goes, well, how am I supposed to know? I don't know any. Nobody taught me any of this stuff. And I sort of said, like, off the cuff, I'm like, well, you need a little course in etiquette. And which was the original title of the book, was going to be called Etiquette, right? And set etiquette, because I was realizing that I was learning all these things, like getting yelled at for years, not knowing some of these things for the other department. I knew what the etiquette for being a makeup effects artist was,
Sure.
but I didn't know what it was for all the other departments. And I did some research. I'm really like, yeah, there's not really a book like this at all. And, I was working on a lot of the Farrelly Brothers movies, and they're wonderful. It was a very family environment. So when I had downtimes on set, they gave me permission to interview people on set. So I just started collecting interviews over the years, with the idea of just doing a small, like, pamphlet type book. But then when I started to send it out, queries out to publishers, they were like, no, there's something more here. You need to, like, really expand this and expand it. So I did, and really put a lot of work into it, and it's something I'm very proud of, because. And every time I do a new edition, I rewrite the introduction, and I update information, and I get new interviews, pull out some of the interviews that may not be relevant. But it's got a great cross section. I mean, I've got, like, obviously some of the names I've read, but I also got, like, the guy who was the grip on the Poseidon Adventure.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of old school knowledge as well, because there's so much to learn from that. And one of the things with the new edition here is that this was actually written after I directed Encounter. So the introduction is my experience as a first-time feature director. And, one of the things I talk about, and this is the truth, and this really goes back to what you were talking about beforehand, which was when you were talking about the thing with the getting coffee, right?
Right.
So, obviously I got to choose my keys, because we're filming this in Augusta, Georgia, and I got to choose my keys. But I told my keys, I'm like, look.
Well, hang on, stop. What does that mean? For the people watching right now, what does it mean to choose your keys? Since you said it.
So these are the department heads, like the main electrician, the main, grip, all the department
So
heads.
people know, like, in the key grip, that's so those are the keys.
Yes. And so I told the keys, I'm like, look, I trust you. You know the people. You know this community better than I do. I'm going to bring some people in from LA, just like I brought in my first AD. I brought in my effects guys and, the actors, right? But everybody else was going to be local because we're trying to grow the community in Augusta.
Yeah.
And we actually wound up being the first Hollywood film made entirely in Augusta, Georgia, using an Augusta crew. You know what I mean? There'd been bigger films that had come in, but they would just shoot a couple of scenes or something.
Yeah.
We shot the entire movie there.
That was smart because the people would work harder for you.
Yeah, and when I said to the Keys, this is all I ask. I go, when I get to town for pre-production, please allow me to sit down individually with each of the crew members, that I'm going to be working with. And I literally had a meeting with every single one of them, including the PAs. And I just told them, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm about. You know what I mean? And, I just wanted you to meet me personally. And I want you to know that you're as important as anybody else on this set. And this is the truth. You know what I mean? And it was funny because some of them were like, had done some films. They go, wow, I've never talked to a director before. And I'm like, well, that's a shame because I can't make the movie without you. You know what I mean? Like if you decide, even if you're a PA, right? You decide not to show up for set one day, we might not make our day. You know what I mean? And I wanted to empower everybody and, let them know that, this was a family. This was I wanted them to feel that they had ownership of this movie as well. And you know what? Proof's in the pudding. We came in on schedule and under budget. Okay. And the great thing was because of that, I was able to do some reshoots, like come back and do 3 days of reshoots and raise up the value of the film. And, it just treating people, the whole thing with the rules of etiquette is just treating people like they're people, and I think I've worked on 50 films. I've worked on actually over 50 films. As an executive, as a producer, as a makeup, I've seen a lot, you know what I mean? And the one thing I've realized is that ego is the worst thing. And you got to treat everybody properly. I got to treat everybody how you want to be treated. I mean, what the golden rule, right? But the thing is, it was such a wonderful environment. And really, when you want to talk about like the proofs in the pudding, I mean, like no joke. Like this is no joke. I'm going to show you this on my phone here. I've had this text stream. This is my entire cast. Okay, you can see them up there, and Luke included, right? We were just wishing Glenn Keogh, who's one of the stars of Encounter, a happy birthday because it was his birthday the other day. Okay. This was just like literally a couple of days ago. I mean, this text stream has been going on for 4 years now. Yeah. And we support each other. We support each other's, like when someone's going to be on TV or in a play, or, it's their birthday or just something. We all celebrate it together, and we all like reach out and even Sarah Booth is in this, and she literally had a small role, 1-day role on my film playing the bartender. She's now on that Three Pines show as one of the main characters, and she's getting so much attention on that. I could not be more proud of her. And that's it's wonderful.
Well, I think that's something that attitude you have is something that the business. It's so interesting to me because look. You and I both grew up loving directors, loving the mystique, loving the whole John Carpenter. I mean, when I was coming up, I wanted to be a cross. I always said I wanted to be Stanley Kubrick meets John Carpenter meets David Cronenberg.
Oh yeah,
those are the 3 directors. They were my touchstones. People are like, what about Spielberg? I'm like, nah. Spielberg, like I could never be Spielberg. The guy was a savant moving the camera. I'm like, I'm not that guy. Like Cronenberg had these lock-off simple shots, and Carpenter shot widescreen, and Kubrick was a little bit wacky. And I'm like, that's it. Kubrick's my favorite director. But what's really interesting is nowadays we're now like I never thought that there would be a time when movies were not important to young people. Yeah. Like and life has changed, and I understand that.
Let me tell you some stories.
But as we looked outward, to be a film fan was to look outward, to look at art, to look at other people's work, And now we live in a world where everybody is pointing the cameras at themselves. And the idea to love narrative, to find, whether it's in a novel, whether it's in a comic book, whether it's in a motion picture, a symphony, an opera, wherever you find narrative, is to look out, to find work that and you watch it and you take it in and you puzzle over it and you wonder, what does it mean to me? You know, now everyone is the star of their own TikTok video.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that means they don't have to look outward and they don't have to question. They're just like, I need to look, you know, however I have to look. And I never thought that would happen. I mean, people ask me, like, what's the most surprising thing? Well, what I wanted to do is I wanted to be a storyteller. I wanted film to be my medium. I never thought that film would be the art form of the 20th century and that the 21st century would kind of leave that behind, which, by the way, is not a bad thing. And I don't sit there and go, well, you know, what's happened to the world I wanted to live in? I'm all about innovation in the future. I'm a futurist, let it happen. But it is a little difficult because I think narrative and understanding narrative and putting narrative into some kind of a contextual framework also helps you. I mean, what are our lives if not narratives?
Yeah,
you know. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, I was just going to say that, look, you and I are true movie fans. I mean, like, I joke that I'm the reason why MoviePass failed, because I took it as a personal challenge. You know, that, wait, you're saying I can see a movie a day for $10? Let's put that to the challenge. And boy, did they try to stop me.
Oh.
You know, now you have to take pictures of your tickets. Now you can't see a movie more than once. Like, I mean, like, literally, that was like.
Oh, and I when I got it, I was given a year movie pass. And within 3 months, the power of that had been diminished.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what? Because I knew when I got it, I'm like, there's no way this could ever work. And I was going to like.
Not with me in the world. Not with people like you and I in the world.
No, with the Burbank 16 and the Americana. I was like, come on, man. You know, I knew it never would have worked.
Well, I have my AMC A list now, which my biggest fear, like, no, I know you're going to think I'm joking, but my biggest fear, other than dying during the, you know, pandemic, and I never got COVID, which is great, was that they were going to cancel the AMC A list. Like, I know you think I'm joking.
No, we talk about it all the time. I talk about it all the time.
I was terrified they were going to, like, stop that. And I'll tell you something, like, once I got vaccinated, I have seen, oh my God, it's an epic amount of movies. And I just go see movies constantly. And I see documentaries, I see dramas, I see sports movies, I see horror movies. And you know, you and I, we love movies. I mean, I own over 2,000 films in my, you know, Blu-ray and DVD collection.
Yeah, I mean, I've been that's what I've been doing. I built another shelf today.
Yeah, and you know what's hilarious? Like last week, I mean, no joke, or what it was, February 14th. So I watched My Bloody Valentine, the director's cut, right, or the unrated version
of the original, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah, and I watched it on Valentine's Day. The next night, I was watching a movie by Jacques Tati, you know, from my Criterion collection, and it's like. It's just movies for me. Like the last couple of days, there's this great documentaries, In Search of Darkness, and I was watching In Search of Darkness 3, and these are 5-hour-long documentaries.
They're the ones by Adam. Are they from Adam? Oh God, the British guy. Or are you talking about the 80s horror documentaries?
The 80s ones.
Yeah.
They're just on the 80s. And it's part 3. And these are 5-hour documentaries.
Yeah, dude.
Like, I don't think I could know more about the horror genre, but it doesn't stop me from watching. I was watching part 3.
Those documentaries are the best.
They are. They're fantastic. And I just love it. And that's the thing is, like, even though I know how the sausage is made, and trust you, we know how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was an executive, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? It's you know, I still, when I watch movies, I'm a little kid, and I don't analyze them. I just watch them, and I want the movies to wash over me, and I just want to enjoy it, whether it's Cocaine Bear, which I loved, or whether it's, Tar or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's funny that you say that, because just the other day I had never seen Avengers Endgame. I love Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, but I'd never seen the IMAX enhanced version on Disney Plus.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, if you're a comic fan, and I have to say the presentation, we have a new film room set up, and I tweaked everything, the Dolby Atmos system and the screen.
I just have 7.1s around.
Well, I tweaked everything, and I'll tell you something. What was really interesting when you're watching Avengers Endgame, and I love my collection of movies, but streaming is getting better. And I'm watching the Professor Hulk sequence when they go to Hulk to see because Tony Stark said, no, we're not going to help you. I'm not going to help you. Well, we go to Hulk, and it's the kids come up to him in the diner.
Yeah.
The IMAX enhanced version is so on Disney Plus. The picture is so great. Because that's a motion capture mocap effect. It is stunning. And that's why I think that a lot of people, Phase 4 and now Phase 5 of the MCU is a bit of a letdown, because when you watch Infinity War and Endgame, it's peak, not just peak Marvel, it's peak fantasy cinema from one frame to the next. I mean, from the opening of Endgame, a lot of people, Infinity War is more focused, but I'm watching this movie, and I had watched Tar again right before I watched Endgame. And I love, Todd Field. I love Little Children. I loved In the Bedroom, and it took him. He didn't make a movie since 2006. And I'm watching Tar, which I loved.
Yeah,
love the cinematography. I love everything about it. I love Kate Blanchett's performance. And then I watched Endgame. and I'm like, I haven't seen this in IMAX enhancement, and and it was, I'm playing it really loud. And Endgame, even streaming over Disney Plus. It has some kick and bass. The Atmos effects are up. It's in Dolby Vision, and I was loving life.
Yeah,
I'm like, I love this. It's
amazing, isn't it? I mean, like, I really, it's funny. This is funny, and I try to explain this to people, and some people get it, and some people don't. Right? Okay, so my ex brother-in-law is Richard Porter, who was the head writer of Top Gear in the UK. And I always remember this, right? We were, sitting on the beach and, watching, our kids play and stuff like that. We're sitting on the beach, and Richard turns to me and he says, "Isn't this the life?" And I was like, actually, this is not really like me. You know what I mean? Because it's like, all I'm thinking about, is I'm sitting on the beach, and yes, I can enjoy nature. I go on walks and stuff like that. I'm not a complete shut-in, okay, by any stretch of imagination. But it got me thinking, because it was like all I could think of the things I wanted to be doing that I really enjoy, and not sitting on the beach for some reason, right? But it made something fixed and focused for me. Do you know what a vacation is for me? Like, I take vacations. I've been to Europe. I've been, all over the place. No, I'm not like a shut-in, okay? But for me, a vacation is going to see a movie. It's going to see a movie, because you know why? Because I'm not in my head.
Right. Yeah. Totally understand.
I'm in this other realm, and I'm fixed and focused on the story and on these characters, and that for me is a vacation from my life, because I don't feel like I need to. And I think this gets into more of what we're talking about, and we really, it almost nicely dovetails back to what you were talking about at the beginning about the people who can't hack it or quit, you know what I mean, or want to quit or say this isn't working for me. It's like, I'm telling you, I love my life. You know what I mean? I can't believe I've worked in the industry for 34 years, and I feel like I'm just scratching the surface.
Yeah, me too.
And it's like, it's one of those things where I feel like I've never worked a day in my life. And trust me, it has not been easy. I've been kicked in the nuts a lot over the years.
Dude, the worst. Honestly, I think that our love of cinema has kept us going.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was always something like the reason I collect films is they're like totemic examples of things that,
Yes.
like, I can
Yeah.
pick up something like, I was like, hey, I got the German remaster of Strange Days,
Nice.
which
Nice.
hasn't been released, and the transfer's new. And I'm like,
Right.
great. And I love this movie, but
Yeah.
it's to have it, and it's almost like you respect the work that went into it, and you respect the people that did the work. And I think what's really interesting is that now, and I'm not criticizing this because we're using social media right now and we're talking about our experiences and all that, but you know, when I'm watching, and dude, I will sit there and flip through TikTok reels or YouTube reels or Instagram reels, and I will be entertained. I could spend 2 hours. Now, here's the thing that freaks me out. So you have 2 hours of time, and you can sit there and watch reels on Instagram, and you can be perfectly entertained, you know, in these bite size, or in the same 2 hours, you can watch Tucker, A Man in His Dream, or Rumblefish. You know, Coppola's movies, movie, not Godfather, not The Conversation, not Apocalypse Now, but movies that a favorite, even The Rainmaker. You know, Coppola, he needed to make money. He did a John Grisham adaptation. The Rainmaker is really great. It's got Matt Damon in it. It's got Mickey Rourke in it as Bruiser, and it's a really good movie. But it's not a movie that people are like. It doesn't transcend time. It's a down home. You know, it's a Louisiana legal drama based on a John Grisham book. But I love it. Now here's the thing. Nowadays, people, you know, it might take 20 years to get a movie like The Rainmaker made. And in that 2 hours of time, you can just flip through TikTok 90-second videos and be entertained, or you can watch a movie that somebody toiled away for years on.
But I made it up, Rob. You know, I mean, that's the thing is like.
I know, but that's for us.
Yeah.
Like, I worked on Tango Shalom for 5 years. I knew there wasn't one person that I knew that I could ever show that. I mean, it was a really ultra low budget film. I'm really proud of the editorial work I did and the visual effects work I did and all this work I did in the film. No one I know is going to ever, it is what it is. And I know what it is, but you know what? I made it the best version of what it was that it could possibly be. So I take away great satisfaction. Every movie I worked on, the most low budget, when I worked on Arcade, it sat on a shelf unreleasable. I helped make it really mediocre. And I'm proud of that mediocrity. I spent a year every day of my life. I had a girlfriend at the time that I really liked, and she said to me, this is a true story. She said, she was a randy girl. She said, you can't even come over here and fuck me anymore without thinking about your goddamn movie. You're seeing tomorrow's edit, aren't you? And I'm like, and this is this beautiful blonde standing there naked in front of me. I'm like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
You know, yeah, you're not wrong. But I mean, look, you know what's crazy? I just did a 25th, 23rd, like anniversary, like podcast about the St. Francisville experiment, which was my first, feature, right? That I wrote. And, you know, I've had a very love
23 years.
Yeah, I've had a very love-hate relationship with that movie, but it's sort of become a bit of a cult, you know, hit. And we got all the actors together and so forth, and it was like wonderful. And it was, the reason we did it is because I got contacted by some podcast, and they're like, "We are huge fans of this movie, and we absolutely love it." And we, you know, and I helped them gather everybody for this thing, and it was so wonderful. And you know, the fact that here's a movie that I made, you know, 23 years ago that I really, you know, didn't feel the greatest about, but, you know, to know that it really meant a lot to people, and, you know, that these things endure, you know, these things endure.
Dude,
and
there's a guy that loves Arcade, and, you know, he posts on Facebook, and I'm just like, wow, like making Arcade with Peter Billingsley. I mean, Schweiger, it was my idea to re-edit it. You know, we had to submit 10 minutes. Like, what do you guys know about re-editing a movie? I'm like, well, I got an A in my editing class at USC.
Yeah.
And Dan's like, well, Rob, have you ever, you know, cut a feature? No.
No.
But it was, and we cut it on a 3/4 inch tape system.
Wow.
Dude, it was insane. But to know that almost 30 years later now, at 30 years this year, somebody out there is like, it shaped my childhood.
Yeah, well, can I tell you something that's really funny? So I was watching, like, after we filmed that thing, because I was looking up stuff on St. Francisville, like my YouTube feed was, hey, you might like this. And there was one that was like the 50 top found footage movies, right?
Right.
And okay, so mind you, St. Francisville was literally like the first like Blair Witch ripoff, right? It was like, that's why it was made.
I
right?
love that that's what it is. It was the first Blair Witch ripoff.
Yeah. But here's the thing, it was done for real, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. But here's the thing. So I'm watching this, I was like working on a puzzle. I like working on puzzles, right? And I was working on the puzzle and they get up to like 40, right? And I'm like, all right, or it was a 40 or I'm trying to remember what number it was. It was like 30 or something like that. And I'm like, all right, well, clearly St. Francisville is not making this list. And it was like number 29. And the guy's like talking about it. He goes, look, and he says this was the first one that came out after Blair Witch. And he was actually very complimentary to it. And I go, I can't believe this. And I wound up sending it like to, the cast and stuff like that. And it's like, wow, I had already given up hope that it was even going to be, like, I was like, maybe it's like number 48 or something. Wound up being number 29 on his list. And he said, this movie really deserves some respect. And it's like, wow.
Well, what's interesting though is I think what is put into it is what comes out, and people, I'll tell you something. Moorhead and the guys who made Synchronic, but they also made.
Yeah. Well, I love the Endless.
Okay, now have you ever have you ever seen their first movie, Resolution?
No, I think I saw their second one.
They made Spring.
Yeah, Spring.
So Spring. Resolution, I Moorhead and why am I drawing a blank? They directed episodes of Moon Knight. These two guys, yeah. Resolution was their first movie, yeah. And this really low budget movie about a friend who goes to visit his other friend that's hidden away in a cabin, and I loved it. I love this movie.
I love The Endless.
The Endless is a sequel to Resolution, and okay. I didn't know that because I'm watching. Why am I Moorhead and why am I drawing a blank on their names? The other director, they direct together.
Yeah.
And because I love Spring. When I'd heard about Resolution, and I watched it, I was like, I loved it. And then when I watched The Endless, in the middle of the movie, it turns into what's going on in Endless relates back to when, and there's a scene. If you watch, you wouldn't know because you hadn't seen Resolution, but it goes back to Resolution, and it fucking blew my mind. When I was watching this, I was like, I literally, and nobody else would care.
Yeah.
like nobody else had a relationship. Like, I love this movie Resolution so much. I love these guys. I watched their movie Spring, and when I was watching Resolution, when it became, I had no idea it was a sequel to Resolution. I'm watching The Endless, which I loved.
Yeah.
And it goes to back to the cabin that's in Resolution.
Oh.
I lost my shit. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my, and Elizabeth's like, what? I probably was watching and she heard me. I'm like, I'm freaking out. And I felt such joy.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth is like, what's wrong? And I go, you're not going to believe this. Yeah. The Endless is a sequel to Resolution. I can't believe And she's like, who cares?
Yeah,
and I'm like,
we care.
Like I don't think anybody would, like, I get these fixations with movies. Like, I'm completely fixated on William Friedkin's 1985 To Live and Die in L.A. I saw it opening night, Friday night when it opened in October of 85, or maybe November 1st. Nobody likes it as much as I do. For whatever reason. I with a Wang Chung score, William Peterson walking around with his bow leg, the homoeroticism, whatever it is. The crazy chicks in it. I love everything about this movie. I can't get enough of it. No
But
one loves this movie as much as I do.
yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. Is like, first of all, let me just say one thing about the Endless before we move on. I want to say one thing because I use the Endless as an example, and actually in regards to Encounter as well, because I always say with the Endless that it's a movie that works despite itself. It's painfully low budget, you know what I mean, and it suffers from. But with all like the warts and all of it, it's still this wonderful, enjoyable movie that like doesn't have the greatest acting, doesn't have the greatest like cinematography. There's so many things working against it, and I still
it's Benson and Moorhead. I'm so embarrassed. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. Guys, I know you're not going to ever watch this stream, but if you somehow see it, I apologize. I do. My love of the Endless and my love of Resolution know no bounds.
Well, can you apologize to Luke Hemsworth too if you're in the
apologize? And by the way, Liam, Luke, I'm so sorry I said Liam. I don't know why I said Liam. Maybe it's because I'm watching Banshees of Inisherin too many times. To and Liam, I'm so sorry, Luke.
But here's the thing, like I always say about Encounter. Look, there are people who fucking hate it. Okay, like when there was like I was getting like lots of like really middling and bad reviews, and then there was people who like fucking love it. And as a matter of fact, even like yesterday, I was looking at the stream because there's Sci-Fi Central is one of the YouTube. They literally got the rights for it for their YouTube channel. So it's like on Peacock, it's on Tubi, it's on like all over the place. But they licensed it for YouTube. And I always go on there and I always reply to, when people make nice comments about it. And it's 90% like really positive stuff. And some guy like literally yesterday wrote this long thing. He's like, I've been watching these type of movies for, over 30 years. And I've never given a movie 5 stars ever, except for this movie. And it's like, he writes this long thing. And I was like, wow, that really, that really, and I wrote this really thing back. But what I wanted to say was that, like the Endless, you know what I mean? Like, is like Encounter, is it the most technically flawless movie? Fuck no. I mean, the movie was made for $750,000.
Like Tango Shalom.
Yeah, and it's like, we did, but you know what? At the end of the day, I made the movie that I wanted to make. You know what I mean? And warts and all, I was proud of it because it is an expression of me as a creative, and it is the movie I wanted to make with the skills that I had at the time and with the money that I had and the crew I had. This what I felt was the best I could do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can live with it. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to speak to what I think is really unfortunate is we grew up watching movies that cost from $100,000. How much did Texas Chainsaw Massacre cost?
Yeah.
How much did Night of the Living Dead cost?
Yeah.
And so, what's interesting is if you are 31 years old now, you were born when Jurassic Park came out.
Yeah.
And so you lived in a world where the movies that we grew up loving, like low budget, and this is not me saying, no, I'm not shouting at clouds. What I'm saying is the aesthetics of low budget films do not exist anymore. Yeah. You can't. Nobody would make. But what I would say is what's interesting is back in the day, even with the lowest budget in the world, movies could only be seen at the drive-in, or on TV, or in the theater. Like movies that were made, they weren't even on TV. There was no home video. Yeah. So that
by the way, I still remember the first 2 movies I saw in home videos for my birthday. We rented a VCR, and you know what they were?
No.
Alien and Dragon Slayer.
So it was Alien still on magnetic home video then before it moved over to it was a magnetic the white spine. Yes. That was well. What's interesting though is that nowadays movie-going audiences, like our young charges, a lot of the people that I speak to on this channel, they have never seen, and this is not a criticism. They can't even watch those movies. If a film doesn't have a certain level of production value, they can't like, and I get it because it's like the difference between knowing how to read and actually being literate. You need to understand, like when you go back and you watch a movie like The Endless, There's a lot of people that'll dismiss it out of hand. Like people want they want the $200 million Marvel production value. They can't go back. Like, there are people that can't watch Battle Beyond the Stars and like it.
I almost watched that the other night.
I mean, dude, and they can't. Like, I talk to people how much I love Star Crash, and look, Star Crash was never good. But the reason that I love it was in the wake of Star Wars, there was all these people like Luigi Cozzi or Louis Coates, as he was called in America. There was a wit and a verve, and these guys like, hey man, we can use model parts and build spaceships, and we can have a spaceship with a giant hand that closes instead of the Death Star. And we'll get Joe Spinell, to play Count Zarth. I mean, Star Crash is not good. But I love it because of what they went for. They decided, we're gonna make this, might be the only movie we make. We're gonna rip off Ray Harryhausen. We're gonna rip off Kurosawa. We're gonna rip off Star Wars. We're gonna rip off James Bond, and we're gonna try. And it's this amalgamation of low budget ridiculousness that to me has such a wit and a verve. Like, these people trying with nothing to try and do this stuff, and there's a lot of cool stuff in it. And and they got John Barry to score it, and they got Christopher Plummer to play the Emperor of the Universe. And nowadays, unfortunately, it's really difficult to explain to younger audiences because they're literally we had that learning curve. We were watching these low budget. I remember somebody showed me I Drink Your Blood, the Jerry Gross, the hippies, they get rabies, and it's kind of like a Night of the Living Dead ripoff. Yeah. Watching it on this just grungy videotape, you could barely see the image, and it was awesome. Nowadays I would never show that to anybody because nobody could. People do not have the understanding to watch these movies and get anything out of them, and this isn't a criticism. It's just the modern age.
Yeah, it's funny. My buddy Bill Zahn, who's art director at Pixar now and so forth, and he has a new movie called Abandoned Creatures that he just directed. That's wonderful. That's available now. And he made this really interesting observation that I loved. He goes, the problem with low budget films is that when you reach a certain level of competence with the film, then there's no tolerance for it not feeling like an Avengers movie. Do you know what I mean? So, it makes a lot of sense to me. Like, if your movie just looks like it's cheesy and it's not at a certain level, people will accept it. And people, they had no budget and, this is what it is. But the minute you reach a level of competence, you're being now compared to movies that have budgets 30 times larger than you.
And I would say people compare every movie to every movie. They're like, well, how come this doesn't look like Avengers Endgame?
Yeah.
Or I used to say Apocalypse Now. Why doesn't this look like Apocalypse Now? I mean, I remember in the home video era, because I started working at a video store. I worked at the second video store in the United States.
Really?
Yeah. And it was in Seattle. It was called Video Space. It was founded by Weston Nishimura. And it was because after my bar mitzvah, I would just go hang out. I had money to burn, and I was buying tapes. And the guys gave me, I would literally take the bus. I'd take 2 buses to get to this store. And it was a tiny, tiny store because there was nothing had been released. There was magnetic video. None of the studios, Warner Brothers had released stuff. And Fox was licensed by magnetic video. It was so, and I would just I'd go to the store and I would just walk around and pick up the same tapes I would see every time because there was nothing. And they're like, kid, you want a job? These 2 guys gave me a job. I was 13 years old. And I would take the new tapes out and re-shrink wrap the boxes with a styrofoam insert, and they would put them out. Yeah. And then I'd put in the faux sleeve, and that was my job. And
funny. I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second because I worked in a video store too. I worked at THE, the home entertainment or and so we were both worked in video stores, and I always joke that my only non-industry or industry like tangent job was when I was a bagger at a grocery store, and damn, I was such a good bagger. I still bag my own groceries to this day. But that was when I was 13 years old. That was my first job. Was
and there was no Blockbuster. I mean, by the time I was,
but then I worked in a movie theater, and then I worked at a video store, and then I worked in the industry. I mean, that was basically my leap. But did you ever work in a movie theater?
No.
Okay.
No, I never did. And I was working. What was interesting at 13, 14, 15, I was selling back then $1,500 pieces of electronics to really, really wealthy people. And I would go to their house and set it up for them. And I'd show them the tracking control. And I would plug it in, explain it. And I was such a novelty, and I would get $100 tip. It was a racket, man. I had a racket going.
You could buy one movie for that.
I know. The Blues Brothers was $112, and it was 2 VHS tapes. But it was such a weird, and back then Charlie Band, the first pre-recorded tape I ever owned was Halloween on Meta before it had become Media. Because it was called Meta. His first wife her first name was Meta. So that's why it was Meta Home Entertainment. And when they changed it to Media, it was the same box. It was the same thing. It looked exactly the same. It's just the logo had become Media instead of Meta. And
Media and Vestron were my two favorite.
I love the artwork. And the Vestron with the great, that logo at the beginning. Yeah. But again, as movie fans, it was so crazy because what Media was putting out, I didn't realize it was a lot of Charlie Band movies. Laser Blast was on Media. The day time ended was on, and then
that was on Media.
But that was 85. That was
I know.
That was, and then but he put on then he had created almost concurrently Wizard, put out Like I Spit on Your Grave, and that was Demi Moore on the cover, and all that stuff. And I know we're reminiscing. People are totally tuning out, but let me bring this back.
Yeah.
Now,
can we talk about my book? I mean, and my
well, I was going to say now I want to bring it back to philosophically. I have often said on this channel that cinema was the great art form of the 20th century. Okay. And I am convinced that as we move in, I think that I think games, video gaming, is where film was in the 1920s, video games are now. I mean, eventually with virtual technology, call it 2027, whatever it's going to be, there's going to be a massive leap forward. I don't know what that leap is going to be.
Yeah. But I've worked in video games. I've worked in video game marketing.
Yeah, well, video games are and gaming is, young people don't give a fuck about movies. They'll go see an event film and be part of it, but not like what we're talking about. People are looking at us going, and I understand that because narrative means you have to look outside. Everyone is now looking inward. It's all about my identity. It's all about how I feel. It's all about how this person feels, that person feels. No one's looking outward anymore. It's all about looking inward. And I'm not criticizing that. Yeah. It's just different. And gaming it makes you the protagonist. Yes. So the game is happening to you, which is the opposite of what being a movie fan is. I mean, it's watching a movie is passive. Yes. But where gaming, you're the center of, and that's why things have changed. You're the center of TikTok. You're the center of Instagram. You're the center of your reels. The problem is we now have a civilization of everybody they're navel gazing. They're just not that interesting. And there's nothing to push. If you're only looking at yourself and you're so wrapped up in your own identity, who's gonna push society forward? Where's the aspirational nature of it? No. I need to feel good about myself, And I would say, to bring it around to your book, the very act of writing a book. Now we have Chat GPT and every other manner of AI. Dude, I wrote a children's book on Chat GPT as a joke yesterday. And I was trying to show a friend, a business partner, how Chat GPT works. Yeah. And I said, you could write a whole book using this. And he goes, well, what do you mean? And I go, watch this. And I wrote a prompt. I basically said, Mrs. Thompson, a 1950s housewife, meets the devil. Write me the first paragraph. That's my prompt. I got a whole paragraph.
Okay, you found me out. You found me out. I wrote it.
No, but what was crazy about that then Mike, my business partner, goes, what if that was written like Dr. Seuss? And I said, rewrite in the style of Dr. Seuss. And the paragraph was rewritten. By the way, now someone's going to go do it, and they can. So I ended up getting, and then I kept adding prompts to add it to my story, and I got 32 4-line stanzas, 32 pages, and I'm like, this is a children's book, and I'm now doing the artwork using Midjourney, and I'm just going to put it. I'm going to publish it on Amazon, and it's going to be called. I have the title for it, and the subtitle is going to be your child's first horror novel.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's just like, and I did it in like 30 minutes, and then suddenly I have this whole thing. I just kept adding prompts and giving him, but it's done.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? So, like I said, Warren, my writing partner, he really is like a real computer guy. So he set me up with a beta for for whatever what is it called? I don't even know what it's called there, the thing on Edge. But we had it right. We said, like, write a press release for the Silent Planet. And it was fucking great.
Yeah.
It was great. It was like we tweaked it like maybe a word or something, but it was like, this is crazy. It knew everything about me. It got you got a fact wrong.
That's the thing. The AI writing programs, they're terrible with facts. You have to be very careful. Yeah. Do not do anything with AI with facts.
Yeah.
And but yeah, what's really fascinating is when you ask it, like, just give it a premise. Write me the first paragraph about this. And I mean, it gives, but here's the thing about it. Here's what I would say, that eventually, I believe that the great currency of the 21st century is going to be authenticity. I really do. You have to be and people have to be their authentic selves. And I think that what's really happened, especially with identity and identity politics and all that, it's all tribalism. Yeah. And when you drill down with people, they really, when you get far enough in, they really don't understand why they're espousing these ideas, and they think, I'm this way, and I'm like, you're not really that way.
Yeah.
You've joined a group to have the affirmation of that group.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if somebody calls you on it, you will lose. So I really believe that authenticity. So in what you've done in writing your book, pardon me, let me just rifle through. Let's bring it back home. Here's Paul's book, On the Set, The Hidden Rules of Movie Making Etiquette, in its 4th edition. Tomorrow, released through Amazon, The Silent Planet is coming out. He's also written comic books like Hired Guns. And his other comic, what is your other comic?
Discord? Oh, I got a lot of them.
Discord, but if you're watching this chat right now and you look in the live chat, I'm going to post the link where you can get free issues of both Discord and his other comic. And there it is.
Yeah.
And so go right there, fill it out.
It's just like when people know it, Hired Guns is it's a fun little concept, because it's sort of like, imagine if James Bond goes rogue and decides to start an international incident.
There you go.
Who do you send after him? So that's sort of like the sort of the premise of Hired Guns. I mean, it's not James Bond, obviously. It's got its own.
No, but the premise is there. I mean, and what's really interesting is I think the one thing that AI can never bring is nuance. Yeah. Flavor. It's like somebody who can read a recipe but doesn't know how to cook.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like, I think the fun thing is, like, because you and I have seen so much and we really respect the genres, it's like we don't want to repeat stuff. So like I always say I write a little to the left of genre, and if there's one unifying thing about I think all my stories, regardless of the genre, is that I really am trying to look at new angles.
Right.
Like approach things from a different way and a different point of view, and that's what with Silent Planet. I'm really, like I said, it's very thematically based, but I'm really, as I did with Encounter as well, is playing against your expectations, because I want you to bring the baggage. You have the baggage. There's no way to escape the baggage.
Right.
And
exactly.
there's a lot of things that you're just going to anticipate.
That's a great way to put it. There's no way to escape the baggage.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like knowing that, knowing's half the battle, right? G.I. Joe. Thank you. But it's the idea is that I know you're going to bring certain expectations. And it's not like, oh, look how clever I am subverting your expectations. It's not about that at all. It's just, don't think there's only one way to tell a story. And don't think you're, I like the fact of that there's still surprise, you know what I mean? And it can come organically, and it comes from character. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you're writing, or no matter what genre you're writing it's about characters that you want to go on a journey with.
I agree. And look, the great stories, whether it doesn't matter what genre they're in, storytelling is conveying human truths about our own existence to the viewers, the audience. And we all know what it's like I always pound on my wooden desk. We all know what it's like to live in the physical universe. We all know what it's like to have parents or not have parents, but we know what it's like to live in the world. And all storytelling is commentary, albeit in an entertaining way, about what is human existence like. I mean, we're all locked into this finite existence, and all of us have overarching questions. What does it all mean?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I'll let you
No,
finish,
no, go ahead.
This dovetails perfectly into, you gotta give me the opportunity to pitch Silent Planet a little bit, but it dovetails exactly into the themes I'm exploring, or Oren and I are exploring with Silent Planet, which, one of the major themes is there are things beyond human comprehension. I mean, that is like the sort of the main theme of the story. And then sort of like the sub themes are, because of, human hubris, we tend to think that we can understand things that we just can't understand. And how we tend to anthropomorphize things, like, give human attributes to things that don't belong. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, like, you think you might know what your dog or your cat is thinking, but how the hell do we know? They might be plotting our deaths, as far as we know. And I think and that's really what I'm trying to explore with Silent Planet, where it's a story about this, it's far off in the future, and corporations now can buy planets and strip mine them. But this corporation has bought this planet that has life forms and vegetations that are just not understandable. And they need to put their mining equipment down on this planet, but they don't, obviously they don't want to waste money and put it somewhere where it's going to get destroyed. So they literally have had a science team exploring it for years, trying to figure out where they can start strip mining this thing, and they're not getting anywhere. The science team is not getting anywhere. But that's sort of the backdrop of it. But the main characters are the supply ship that comes every month to drop off supplies to the science team. And there's been no problems for the last 5 years or so. And they come to drop off the supply, and there's no, they don't hear from the science team. And they've never stepped off their ship before. And they're basically told by the corporation, well, find out what happened. I mean, it's not a hostile environment as far as anybody knows, but because this, blue collarish, group of the people who just drop off the supplies, and they've all have their sort of, idiosyncrasies.
Right.
They step onto this planet, which they don't understand and can't comprehend, and they turn a very non-hostile environment rather hostile, because they don't understand. They've never stepped off their ship before. And that's sort of like the essence, of the story. And, but there's, I sort of describe it as sort of like Jurassic Park meets Solaris, because it's an adventure story. It's an adventure story on this, planet filled with things beyond, our sort of comprehension there. But, it really is about these characters and the growth they go through and the, how they actually learn from this situation that the science team hasn't been able to learn anything for 5 years. And,
Well, I have to tell you, I watch a lot of Joe Rogan's podcasts because he's one of the only people that does deep dives. He talks to people for 3 hours, all different kinds of people. And the Weinstein brothers, like Eric and Brett Weinstein. Brett Weinstein was a professor at the Evergreen State College that I went to before I transferred to USC. Oh. And in 2017, there was a student uprising on the campus. Now, the Evergreen State College, when I went there, was the most crunchy, chewy, granola, hippy-dippy school ever. One of the biggest organizations on campus was the Lesbian Gay Student Coalition, and they threw the best parties. And this was in the mid-'80s.
Yeah.
And when I watched the student uprising, and I won't get into what happened, but I was looking at these students going, I could not understand these kids today, and it was so diametrically opposed. Like, I went to this school that was all about intellectual curiosity, and they didn't give grades. They still don't. And what you had to do was you'd have a teacher and 15 students in the class, and you would seminar. Like, you got graded, like you'd read a piece of work, a literature, and you'd have a conversation for hours, and you're sitting around, and you better, when I was there, you better know your shit, because if you didn't do the reading, you were fucked. Yeah. And when I was watching the students, it was all like me. There, and the college, they expected the college to serve them. And what I realized, wow, the kids that are going to college today think the college is something they're buying. And the colleges now are terrified of their own students because the students are the customers, and the customer is always right. And I'm like, I didn't know shit when I went to Evergreen. The whole point was that, like, I wanted it to be dangerous, and I wanted to be challenged by ideas I'd never heard of. The idea of going to college and wanting it to be a safe space was so weird to me. And now we have people that, I need to have like, what the fuck? No. Safe space? Fuck you. What do you know? Who the fuck are you? Like who? What the fuck do you know? The reason you're going to college is because you don't know shit, and everything you think of and everything I'm worried about this. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. And this student uprising happened. I wanted to cart all of those kids away and put them at the end of Toy Story 3. I mean, I and it was really weird. So anyway, so Brett and Eric Weinstein are these two brothers. Eric Weinstein was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he was talking about the idea of he was being asked by Joe Rogan about the physics and the science that exists, and about, are we seeing real UFOs? Are we seeing real aliens and all that? And Eric Weinstein worked for Peter Thiel and people that have a lot of money to spend. So, and he was talking about the fact, he's like, there's things going on in physics and science now that we can't know about, that the general population can't. And he was basically saying, like, he was asking certain scientists, like, is this possible? And the scientists are like, not only is it possible, how far do you want to go? And all this technology exists. And then he started talking about extraterrestrial life, like alien life, harking back to Solaris and whatever. Because I love both versions of Solaris. I love Tarkovsky's version. I love Stanislaw Lem's novel. I love Soderbergh's version. But Eric Weinstein...
It's my favorite novel. It's my favorite novel.
Oh, it's bad. I've been freaked out about what Eric Weinstein was saying. And he talks about, he's like, look, we are observing rats in a maze. We're observing ants or whatever. None of these creatures that we're observing have any awareness that we're there.
Yeah. Okay.
They have no idea that we're observing them, or that what we're doing is having any effect on their lives. All they know is what's in front of them, and like, I'm in a maze, I need to get here, I smell food, I get it. They have no idea. And Eric brought up the idea. He's like, if there was an intelligence that was observing us, we, like you were just saying, we believe we know everything.
Yeah.
We believe that, but whatever intelligence might be observing us, we have no idea that this intelligence, one, is even there.
Yeah.
Or two, like we don't even know what to look for because we're so, and we can't help because we only know our own existence. We don't even know what the rest of the universe is like. It would be like you're in a house that actually has a speakeasy in it. And you didn't know there was a speakeasy. And there's parties going on every night. People are partying. They're doing copious amounts of drugs. They're getting hammered. All you know is that you live in a house. You have no idea that there's a secret door you can open and go into a speakeasy. So Eric Weinstein in this clip, it's like a 15-minute clip on where Eric Weinstein was talking about the fact, like, he's like, we have whoever's observing us, and he was like, we are probably being observed. That there's no way, one, that we would know, no way we can know, and we can have no idea what they're even looking for.
Yeah.
And I it was so freaking me out, but I loved it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm listening.
This is like the stuff I'm exploring in the
and you could see Rogan. That's why what you were describing, and by the way, in your book, which drops from Amazon, The Silent Planet, tomorrow. Here it is. There's the entire cover. There are things in the universe beyond human comprehension. It's right there. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls. And now that you're clearly influenced by Solaris, by Stanislaw Lem's. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I just watched.
Actually, you know what? Actually, but here's the thing. Do you know what's actually the Stanislaw Lem? It's more influenced by
Roadside Picnic.
No, not Roadside. That's the Strugatsky brothers.
Oh, that's right.
No, he wrote a book called Eden. That was very like influential. I love, like, Lem is one of my, like, Lem, Vonnegut, and
I feel bad. The Strugatsky brothers, they wrote The Second Invasion from Mars. They wrote Roadside Picnic. Yeah.
I have like multiple editions of Roadside Picnic. I love, Stalker. I love the movie Stalker. They were going to make a TV series, like about a year ago.
I know. Well, it's like our Benioff and Wise doing. By the way, have you seen the Three Body yet?
I have not.
Okay, so you got to watch it. It's The Three Body Problem, which is a trilogy of books that Weiss.
Which I've learned a little bit about. I didn't know about it, but I've learned about it recently.
So the Chinese did an adaptation. It's 30 episodes, 30-hour-long episodes. Now it's deliberately paced, dude. You'll love it. Yeah. It's on the 10-cent channel on YouTube, and you can watch it. But it is deliberately paced. Yeah. And it is Chinese with their theme songs and all that. But the book is really, it won the Hugo.
Yeah.
It's great. But this series, it's 30 episodes. And it's already there. It's already out on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. Excuse me.
Yeah, I love that because, it's funny. I've been finding the Strugatskys have had a lot of stuff. I'll just check YouTube sometimes, right? To see like if there's any Lem adaptations I don't know about. Like, by the way, do you know that there was a black and white version of Solaris that was done for TV, which I've watched? It's pretty great, actually. It's a black and white Russian, TV movie of it. I mean,
there's so many Russian science fiction films we have not been able to get access to in the West. It's so frustrating.
Yeah. They did The Ugly Swans. I just watched The Ugly Swans, which was a Strugatsky, book. And then there's Hard to Be a God. That was made
Hard to Be. Oh, which I have. I have that. I have the Blu-ray of that.
Yeah, I want to get. But there was another version of it as well. There's two versions.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And so I'm always like looking for stuff like that. But Lem is such great. Lem reminds me of Vonnegut. You know what I mean? Like, because they write, they're satirists as well. They can write very very serious stuff like Mother Night. I love, like,
that's great.
Slaughterhouse 5. I love Slaughterhouse 5. But Mother Night, I think, is my favorite Vonnegut.
Wow. Okay.
I love the theme of it just because it's like, be careful, who you pretend to be, because ultimately that's who you are. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Which I love. And but the thing I love about like Lem, who's like Vonnegut in a lot of respects, is like he's got a whole book that's all fairy tales with robots called the Siberia.
Yep.
And he's got these great books. One of them is like introductions to books that don't really exist.
Yep.
And then another one he has is reviews of books that don't exist. And it's like so brilliant.
My college roommate, I don't know if I've told this story before, but my college roommate, Chuck Bender, he went.
Yes.
Okay. So he went to, so Chuck, my
Remember,
college,
I was doing an adaptation of Return from the Stars.
Yeah. So,
Remember?
but Chuck went to Lem's house, in Poland, and he went and he bought the remake rights to Solaris, had a lawyer take care of it and everything, and then James Cameron and Steven Soderbergh and 20th Century Fox announced that they were going to remake it.
Yeah.
And Chuck shows up and is like, because Moss Film said, "Oh yeah, we have the remake rights."
Yeah.
Chuck's like, "No, you don't." And so Chuck went toe to toe with James Cameron, and he's a co-producer on the film, but he was the one that actually went to Poland. He went to Stanislaw Lem's house and knocked on his door.
Does he still have the rights to the stories?
You know what? I don't know. I should call him and ask him.
Tell him that Saturn Award-winning.
Yeah, I mean,
still wants to do Return from the Stars. I love the treatment I wrote for it.
Yeah, I mean, I know the problem is I'll tell you something. I really wanted to make a Clifford Simak story called Way Station. 1963 Hugo Award winner, and I was looking into the rights.
Was that the one that was in the they had the little magazines, the sci-fi.
Yeah. I don't know if it was.
Is that the same Way Station? Because that's the one that had Stephen King. Like that has a Stephen King story in it. No. Of science fiction.
Yeah, it might have been. No, Way Station was old. It was 63, here's the plot of Way Station.
Okay.
So there's a guy who was dying in the Civil War, and for whatever reason, he didn't die, and he was basically chosen by an alien civilization. There is a vast network of, like, it's not like the United Federation of Planets, but there's Earth's on the, on the western spiral arm of the Milky Way, but there's a vast network of alien races, and each planet has, like, imagine a giant universal transporter.
Okay.
But the transporter, you're beaming over such vast distances that you have to you have layovers. So they build way stations on various planets.
Okay,
and so this Civil War, this guy who died in the Civil War, they resurrected him and they built this house. And it's like a nondescript house in in the deep South or the Midwest or wherever you want to put it. And this guy who's immortal works there, and he's been picked to run the way station. And then what he does is people beam in, like all different kinds of. So in the movie, you'd see all different kinds of aliens, and he hangs out and talks to them.
Love it.
Just like, hey, how's it going? And then it turns out, and he's got his handlers, he's got the people that he works for that say, okay, so-and-so's coming in at 9 o'clock tomorrow, and he's got to stay for 3 days, and here are his needs. His species needs these atmospheric things, and what's interesting is what he doesn't know is they're deciding whether the Earth, do we need the Earth anymore? Is the Earth worth keeping around? Because Earthlings are kind of fucked up, and do we need it? And I know it's part of the ways. So our man that they're going to basically judge the world based on his conduct, and he has no idea that they're doing this. And so what I loved about it, I wanted to direct. Yeah, but it's kind of like that. And the reason I wanted to make the film is because it's this big, giant, heady sci-fi movie set in a house. And from a low budget film perspective, you can see the people that he's taught, like his handlers, That's one place, but most of it. So I was looking into buying the rights, and then let me read you this story. In 2019, because here's the thing, kids. When you're looking, I thought it's a 1963 novel.
Yeah.
Who's gonna care? Well, as I'm looking into the rights, by the way, never look into the rights, because the people that you're looking into the rights with will immediately call somebody who's richer and more powerful than you, going, someone's sniffing around for the rights. Perhaps you want them, and it's the worst thing in the world. Unless you can actually put money down immediately, never try buying the rights to something, because you put it on the radar of people that, and by the way, they're never going to make this. But anyway, so prepare to Netflix and Clifford Simak. Deadline reports that 6th and Idaho, the studio owned by director Matt Reeves, who made Cloverfield and the Planet of the Apes films, has acquired the rights to adapt Clifford D. Simak's Hugo Award-winning novel Way Station into an IMAX film. And they're talking about it being a large-scale sci-fi thriller. That's why it's never going to get made, because it's not a large scale. The ideas are large scale, but the reason it was such a cool property, and the reason I wanted to make it, because I actually thought I could make it. I was like, I could go make this movie for like less than $10 million, do the effects practically, and you're dealing with world-shattering events, and it's all about, the idea that the fate of humanity is happening in this one house.
Yeah. Hey, trust me, I've been there with that heartbreak. I mean, like,
and by the way, they're never going to make that movie.
Yeah, every time they would announce another writer or director for Logan's Run, my heart would look, just to put this in perspective for everyone here, this is like, here's the, by the way, Jim Kruger gave me this, which I love, because he said, I can't live without knowing that you have it. So this is all like the comic books. So
now you have to explain, because we didn't get into that. Now, you wrote a Logan's Run comic.
Yeah, with William F. Nolan.
Yeah. And I didn't know it was an omnibus form. I need to get that now.
Yeah, no, I know. It's beautiful. I mean, like, I can't believe. I mean, that's how many stories I've written. It's crazy. It's because this has Logan's Run, Last Day. I did three series. I did Last Day, Aftermath, and Rebirth. And there was supposed to be War, but it never got made, unfortunately. But it was, God, I want to.
And how many? I mean, I've actually watched Bryan Singer's entire Logan's Run adaptation in previs form.
Really?
He previs the entire movie.
I'd love
that Chris McQuarrie wrote the script for.
Yeah,
and
I'd love to see that. But
how much the movie will never get made, because there's already tens of millions of dollars worth of development against it, and you have to pay that off before you can even.
I've been given some advice about that, but I'm not going to say it in a public forum.
No, it's. I mean, it's so funny, because, again, I would have thought that anybody, the original, for those of you who don't know, if you've seen the 1976 version of Logan's Run, in the original novel, people die at 21.
Yep.
And it's all about a society that ends there. In the movie, they upped it to 30, but and I'm like, making it 21. How great would that be today? You could make the most skewering, caustic, you could skewer the modern. It would be fantastic to make that book today.
Yeah. Well, can I tell you something? Like, here's something interesting, and I won't say the executive's name, right? So I actually went in and met about it, right? And this was years and years ago, right? And they had read my comics, and they really liked them, and they brought me in for a meeting. And I was basically told by the executive, in a nice way, you know what I mean? He said, here's the problem. You're Paul Salamoff. You know what I mean?
Right.
And here's the thing. If I hire Paul Salamoff and you F up, I lose my job. You know what I mean? So I need you to, he goes, but like we hire, and at the time, which is funny, because at the time it was Alex Garland, right? And he goes, we hire Alex Garland, pay him $1 million, and he screws up. It's just, well, who'd have thought Alex Garland would screw up? You know what I mean? Like, that's, that was his logic. So he said to me, he said, so you have to give me a reason. You need to be Paul Salamoff. And you got to give me a reason to, because we read your script and we really like it. And the fact is, you've cracked the nut for, sequels that we're having issues with, but until you're Paul Salamoff, we can't justify ever hiring.
Right.
I'm like, all right, well, fair enough. One of the first things when I won the Saturn Award was like, I said to my manager, I'm like, you got to get me in to find out who is Logan's Run, because it's so all over the place right now.
Is it Nicholas Winding Refn? I mean, who is it? Like, it's been Brian was doing it, and Brian was really far along.
Yeah.
And it's but that's the problem with Hollywood. Like how about the fact that you like the story? Let's go make that.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, that line of reasoning is not even about whether the story's good or whether the movie's going to make is good. It's all about whether the executive is going to keep his job or not.
Yeah.
And by who. And so there's where I was talking earlier about fraudulent creators.
Yeah.
They would rather hire somebody, whether they are passionate about the project or not. They'd rather hire somebody that they can have plausible deniability with if they fuck up.
And that's the thing, is they could never hire me at the time. But I mean, literally, Logan's Run was the first thing like I talked to my manager about when I won the Saturn Awards, because I'm like, God, I still loved it. I love it so much, and I'm really proud of the story that Bill Nolan and I came up with, and he let me run with stuff, especially in the sequels, and I love the sequels. And we actually, one of the things I got to do, which was really awesome, is in the books, they don't really go into how it got to be like it is.
Right.
And I got to solve that, explain how we got from today to what's going on in these facilities, and why people are being terminated at age 21, and and then where the story goes on from it. And
I will say one of my favorite things in Brian's and Chris McQuarrie's version of Logan's Run.
And I don't know anything about that.
Well, it all takes place in like a Gerard, the orbiting Mobile Suit Gundam Babylon 5. It takes place in an giant orbiting environment.
Yeah, which is in the sequel.
Yes, but it's and so everybody's living on the outside, like in Babylon 5, and then as you move in, it's zero gravity. So one of the interesting things about Carousel, it opens with Carousel, and everyone's getting
which isn't from the books, which isn't from the books, that, right?
Right, yeah. No, and so and what's really interesting is each body, as it comes up to the top, goes into this mechanized thing where it's completely. And it would have been an awesome scene where a human body it's already been terminated, but the entire mechanized, it's skinned, it's taken apart, and every single imagine one long sequence where all these people are, and it's all in zero gravity, and they're taken and then you see the bodies just like going like this mechanized thing, and every part of the human body is recycled.
Interesting.
And that's how it opens. And the Sandmen ride these like motorcycles, these air trams, because there's zero gravity. And it was an amount, because the problem is, what I think is really interesting is just go back to the book. Forget there was a movie. Go back and adapt the book. Yeah. And I have Richard Maybaum, the James Bond writer.
Yeah.
Richard Maybaum wrote a version of Logan's Run in 68. And it's really interesting because it comes with, I have to find it, I'll give it to you, but it comes with a disclaimer at the beginning, because people didn't understand it. They didn't understand that it was kind of it was a satire of youth and all that. So it actually says it in the beginning of this, and it's really fascinating. And I'll have to find it. I was like, Richard Maybaum? He was the first person to adapt the book.
That's amazing.
The writer of the James Bond movies. But
it's funny. It's like, you mean the James Bond, you mean like the Ian Fleming books that they now want to rewrite to make them more palatable? We won't get into that. No,
I did. My last Robservations is about Roald Dahl, and it's, I mean, this is everything that's wrong with, the modern age. Like, we want to pretend like human history didn't exist. When were people nice? like never. Like there's been racism and horrors perpetrated against our fellow man since the dawn of time. In 2001, what was the first thing the apes did? Oh, we know how to use tools. Let's go kill these motherfuckers and take their water. That was the beginning of it all. And I mean, if you're a 2001 fan, but I like to believe that that's maybe the way it happened. But it's like now we live in this world where, why do people think they deserve to live in a world where they're safe and happy? I don't understand. What world? Where did that idea come from? And I understand parents want to protect their kids. The world is a horrible place. One solar flare will destroy all of human history in an instant. Didn't you see Knowing? Nicolas Cage knows. But I mean, it's just, I don't mean to be glib, but it's
I know.
I think being science fiction fans and grappling with these ideas make life more palatable.
Yeah.
Listen, we got some people firing in some questions.
Oh, great.
No Money G and became a member of the channel watching this stream, so thank you. And so did Scott Hyman's here.
Oh,
Scott. It's probably past his bedtime, but he sent in a message and just became actually sent in two. He also said, enjoyed the Lola's flashback. Love you both.
Oh, Jesus, that's a blast from the past.
Wow. Yeah, so let's see. Wow. Kevin Rubio says, no question for Paul except how are the kids?
What's funny is, so my daughter, Samantha, is going to USC for theater, and I joked with her, as she's now in her, fourth semester or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I go, you've officially gone to USC longer than I have. She's like mortified by the fact that I didn't graduate college, even though I started working in the film industry while I was still going to school.
Well, yeah, me too. I mean, it's tough. It's like, and college now, it's different too. Do we need college degrees? I'd rather maybe graduate from a trade school now. I mean, who knows? But USC the facilities there are incredible. All right,
I want to hear some of these questions that some of your
Kevin goes on to say, I just wanted to endorse his book On the Set. Should be required reading in all film schools.
Thank you.
That was nice. Tom Jr. Jackson just says, great interview. I hope Paul can come back. Well, he can. Kevin Rubio says, Red Letter Media featured Arcade.
Yeah, they did.
I didn't know that.
Not that I want to like call it another YouTube, but Red Letter Media, that's like my stop whatever I'm doing and watch kind of, whenever I get an alert, they have a new thing. I love that.
And Scott says, Scott Hyman says, also, I'm on the East Coast. I have to be up for work.
Aww.
So he's left.
We love you, Scott.
Albert Vasquez says, I finally saw Logan's Run. It was great. Do you think they'll remake it? Well, we did get into that, but what do you think?
If I have my druthers, they will. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's tough. And then just Zijos just became a member of the channel. So not a lot of questions, not many questions, but there are people that are watching. So what can I say? Daniel Kahn says that I'm his spirit animal, physical media for life. Well, yes. I mean, both of us like that, obviously. And then one of it's very funny. Viradesco says, why don't I say these things on the John Campea show? That's the show that I'm on during the week. And the thing about the John Campea show is we do movie news, and it would be very difficult. That John's experience is very different than ours. And I think one of the things the thing about the YouTube space is it's all fans that decided to talk about movies. And one of the interesting things, Paul, about this space is people want to feel that when they watch you on YouTube, you're somebody they want to hang out and have a beer with.
Oh.
And so the idea of, and like the conversation you had is exactly with you and I had tonight is exactly that kind of thing. Yeah. But when you bring on, I've noticed that when I bring on professionals that I interview, I don't get the audience engagement. Like I remember interviewing Bill Sienkiewicz, who's one of my favorite comic artists of all time. We had a great interview, but not many people watched it because they don't relate to it. You know, the YouTube space is all about relating. And the thing about John is John was he didn't work. I mean, he worked at an effects company, but he didn't have that experience. He wasn't a PA on set. He didn't go through, and not a lot of people do. So it's these experiences that we've had for the last 30 years are sort of lost in the YouTube space because it's hard to explain or convey what they are. Because people they don't understand what it was like to be a PA. Yeah. Like I showed when I was working in, I want to say it was the summer of 91, 92. I was working at Tony Gardner's. I was working on Sleepwalkers.
Oh yeah.
Army of Darkness and the Swamp Thing TV series.
Yeah, and I worked on the Swamp Thing TV series too.
Yeah, when I came in, when I came in from runs, they're like, "Can you just paint one of Dick Durock's heads?" You know, and Tony sent me a picture once of me like painting up one of the headpieces.
I painted a lot of those too.
we all had to do that. It was like everybody, all hands on deck. If you've got 5 minutes, it was crazy. It was crazy, but it was so. First of all, let's get back. So the book comes out tomorrow.
Both in trade paperback edition and digitally. So, yeah.
Ron C says, "Gentlemen, Blow Up, Michelangelo Antonioni's 1966.
Oh, yeah.
Blow Out, 1981, director Brian De Palma. Before franchise movies became a thing, are these two films a franchise or are they standalone movies?" He's asking about Antonio's Blow Up.
Yeah.
And then he's talking about Brian De Palma's Blow Out. Are they, first of all, they're not a franchise. They're entirely different movies.
Yeah. They're very different.
I think they share a central idea.
Yeah.
In that David Hemmings might have caught a murder on a camera, not knowing he caught it, and John Travolta may have caught an assassination when he was recording the sound for a movie he was working on.
And does high anxiety? Where does high anxiety fit into this?
Well, I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do. But I mean, but that's an interesting question. I mean, look, De Palma is so influenced. He wears his influences on his sleeve.
Yes.
But I don't think that's a franchise. I think, look, Blow Up it's as much about swinging the art scene in swinging London in 1966. Yeah, baby. You know, it's as much about that. Whereas Blow Out it's the last vestige of a 70s conspiracy thriller.
Yes.
And I love both movies. As a matter of fact, I have a beautiful French or actually an Italian 4-sheet for Blow Up that I need to get framed. But I think they're different. They're very different movies.
Yeah, like when I saw it, because I'd seen Blow Out a number of times, and I own both of them on Blu-ray. But when I saw what's the Blow Up? Which inspired it. It does seem more of an inspiration as opposed to an adaptation. I mean, they don't. There's not a lot of connective tissue between.
No, only the idea of perhaps catching a murder on a recording device.
Yes.
That central idea is the core of both, but they're very different.
They're very different
movies. I mean, I would say, Blow Out is much more of a straightforward thriller. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like with many of Antonioni's movies, I'm a huge Michelangelo Antonioni fan, and I always talk about his Ennui trilogy, which is La Notte, La Ventura, and The Eclipse. Mm-hmm. And I'm always saying that I can't even recommend those to the people that watch my channel because nobody would dig. They're like, what is this? Why am I watching La Ventura? What happened? What happened to the girl? Do we know if she just what? Well, you never know. And the idea of those, before I met Elizabeth, I took a girl I dated for a while to last year at Marienbad, was playing it at the ArcLight.
Yeah,
And I'd never seen it in the theater, and I was like, oh my God, I have to go see this movie because I love it. And people are like, well, what does it mean? And it's where is this hotel? These people, they keep meeting one another over and over. Like, what's going on? And the thing is, we're so plot oriented now. We can't even I didn't grow up watching European art films of the. I learned about them in film school, but I didn't live through that period of time, and I didn't live in like New York, or I wasn't a bohemian guy going to these kinds of foreign films, or living in Paris and watching Italian neo-realist cinema. I didn't. And when you watch those things now, they're almost impenetrable.
But what's really interesting to me is that I've been doing like deep dives into Bergman and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I really thought, they make the joke on, I don't know, Family Guy or Simpsons or whatever, that it's like, all independent films are cowboys eating pudding.
Right.
There was, so I think I had a misunderstanding of Bergman just because I had seen The Seventh Seal.
Right.
And that was my first Bergman thing. So I thought he was like one of these. But the more I watch of Bergman stuff, especially when you get to like the Virgin Springs and stuff like that,
dude,
it's like this guy's great, and his movies are way more accessible than I expected, and very contemporary. In some of their the relationships with the characters, and I've become like kind of a really big Bergman fan, but not in a pretentious way. You know what I mean? Because he's not as pretentious as I thought he was.
Well, because the thing is, people only know The Seventh Seal because Death playing, and that becomes an easy thing. And I have to say, look, I love The Simpsons, but I honestly think The Simpsons has done more damage to our culture in a way. It completely destroyed respect in children for their elders, for teachers and parents. And then it's parodied every single thing we grew up with liking, adding things that we loved. It's made fun of it all. So everyone's like, oh, I saw anybody today trying to go back and watch The Seventh Seal will be like, I saw this parody on this. And the same is true. People ask me, why don't I like Star Trek Lower Decks? I'm like, because it's destroyed the reality of Star Trek. It's a farcical thing. It's made fun of every aspect. And that's what people like. They like the knowing, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and all that. But what it does is it destroys people's ability to then go back and watch things and take them seriously.
Well, they always say that the last part of the progression of a genre, anything is parody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They always talk about that.
Well, then that would mean the American experiment, our democracy, is wantonly parodied and made fun of on The Simpsons too. So we're at the end of time. Daniel Kahn asks, what are your thoughts on Sunshine? My favorite sci-fi film. I think it's underrated.
Oh, you're going to love this because I was going to bring this up earlier, which is kind of interesting. So, with this, Sci-Fi Academy, I was a film moderator. So I've done a lot of film moderation over the year. And I was actually hired by Fox. It was the first time this had ever happened. I was hired by Fox to do a Q&A with Danny Boyle for Sunshine at Fox. And actually Chris Evans showed up. He wasn't originally supposed to be there, so I had to add Chris Evans into it. And I had really prepared these like really interesting questions. And Danny had just come in from, he was just flown in from London or something like that. So he was really tired and stuff like that. And we did the Q&A, and I was asking questions that were like things like talking about the Quatermass experiment and talking about like, British sci-fi and all like these different things. And Danny Boyle kept on like looking over me and like, like sort of making these, expressions to me. Like he wasn't, I think I was asking a lot of questions like that weren't typical.
Right.
And then afterwards he came up there, I'll never forget this. He came up to me and he said, well done, Paul. Well done. Well done. Like that, he's like, you could tell he really appreciated, like his eyes would sparkle when I would ask some of these questions, and yeah, Sunshine, I like Sunshine, it's a very interesting movie. There's so much going on with it, and it's interesting how the movie evolves over the course of it. and it's one of the that's really funny. Like it's funny because I was actually going to say this story earlier. So yeah, Sunshine is a movie I like, because I had to watch it a number of times, before I did the Q&A, as well. And it sort of has, like shades of Hellraiser in it,
Right. Well, that
not in the Event Horizon, way, but shades of Arthur C. Clarke stuff of like 2001, Shades of Solaris, and yeah, I like that movie. I haven't watched it in a while, but I always proud of myself for that Q&A, because getting the seal of approval from Danny Boyle has really made my day.
It was you and I have such similar experiences, because I had the same thing happen when I moderated the conversation with James Cameron and The Abyss. Where he mocked me on stage at the Academy in Norris with standing room only, and then he took me aside afterwards. He shook my hand. He said, "I very much appreciate how prepared you were for this interview." But
you and I would always do that. You know what I mean? It's like, because we really care, and it's
right.
And it's like, that's the thing, is like doing that research and just letting it flow like a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
that's
I mean, like,
although I did make one in the entire time I ever moderated for the Sci-Fi Academy, I made one big mistake to David Twohy. Oh. And it's so
David Twohy for the Grand Tour.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you so when I got hired out of USC by Mark Levinson and Scott Rosenfeld, the first script they gave me to read, the very first screenplay I ever read professionally, was The Grand Tour. And I
bet nobody even knows this movie, and we're about
and it was the very first script I read, and I didn't realize that I didn't know that recommend. It's not yes, it's recommend, maybe, or no. I did doing the coverage, and I read the script. And I'm like, this is really good. Like I recommended it. I said, you know what? And they had made Teen Wolf and Mystic Pizza. And a movie called Stranded that I think Rocco Joffrey did the matte paintings on. Yeah, something like that. And I go,
big matte painter. Great.
Yeah, and I said, this movie is, you guys should make this. This is really good. It later got made as Grand Tour Disaster in Time with Jeff Daniels for Showtime. It got made, but it was I really liked it. Yeah. And but I interviewed it was at the Academy at the Royal Theater, and it was The Arrival, not Arrival, but it was David Twohy's The Arrival, where Charlie Sheen played Zane Zeminski and Ron Silver was in it, and aliens are going to terraform the Earth. And I made the mistake. There I was interviewing him at the front of the theater. And because I was a fan of like Warlock, and I had read Grand Tour, and I said to him, I go, man, you make like these incredible B movies.
No,
dude, I thought it's a term,
I know.
Oh boy,
it was said with love. It was said with love,
man. That did not go over well.
I wound up interviewing him again for Riddick when I was doing reviews of DVDs and was like on a press tour, I
love his sub movie Below. I'm a huge David Twohy fan. I love Chronicles of Riddick.
I like him.
I mean, he makes these mid-budget all of his look. And the funny thing was I loved The Arrival. I loved it. I
watched it recently, like maybe about 6 months ago, because I hadn't seen it in a long time. I haven't watched The Arrival in a while. It's a good movie.
It is. I mean, I know the CG's dated, the creature stuff's dated, but I love the design of the big thing that the thing comes up and opens up like a flower, and Ron Silver's great, and Charlie Sheen's great. It's great.
If we had time, I would run into my house. I actually have a picture of me interviewing David Twohy from the Grand Tour.
Oh yeah,
it's funny. I looked through all these things. Like I got to interview like Sam Raimi. I got to interview William Friedkin. Got to interview so many like really cool people over the years. Yeah, Guillermo, like for Kronos. We had shown
right.
Kronos,
yep.
And we gave him the Golden Scroll Award. And he always appreciated that. And I would run into I ran into Guillermo at what was the laser disc place we used to go to?
Dave's.
Dave's laser
Dave's.
disc. Yeah. So I would run into him there from time to time, and Guillermo was always really nice to me, and he always remembered that too, which was amazing. Like that I was the one who presented him that Golden Scroll Award. So early on in his career.
When Kronos came out domestically, Lionsgate put it out. And my ex-wife designed the cover for it, and they didn't have the artwork.
You remember she designed the poster for St. Francisville.
Oh yeah, but it's her on the cover of Kronos. She took a picture of herself and put it. It's her on the poster art, which I always thought was hilarious.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I can't believe I was married. That was like 17 years ago. My ex-wife, she was great. She was very talented because she worked for Lionsgate and did all of their horror releases.
I was touched that she was the one who did the poster for St. Francisville. I mean, I think she did a really wonderful job.
Yeah, she did the poster for Michael Davis's Monster Man. She did that. So that was.
I actually have that on DVD. Actually,
yeah, that's a
fun movie.
It is a fun movie.
Most people are like, "What the fuck are they talking about?"
I know they're like, "What?" We're spinning off. Let's see, what do we got in?
Can we answer his question? Yeah, because we talked about Sunshine. Yeah.
Yeah, people are. It's Zios. That's how you say it. Zios says, "I'm going to try and pick up Paul's book. I got the comic download." So for those of you, those of you who don't know, I'll put it in the chat right now. You can get 2 of Paul's comics right now. Get the download. I'm putting it in.
Can I briefly tell people what the premise? This is like,
of course. Tell people what the premise is. Tell people what it is.
And just so you know, there was a prequel series also, but you read Discord first. But the premise, because I'm very premise is the idea that and here's our good guy right here. Here's the little 2-second pitch. Is like, imagine a superhero team like the Avengers or like the X-Men. They're fighting their enemy out in space, and they wind up crash landing on an alien planet and just killed, like body parts everywhere. And the indigenous life forms come out of the woodwork, and they find all these body parts, and they understand what a human is. They're able to understand. So they grab all the usable bits and they reassemble what they think is a human and resurrect him. So our main character wakes up to realize that not only is he made up of parts of his fallen teammates, but also parts of his enemy. And he has to go back to Earth. So imagine if Tony Stark came back to Earth and he had the Hulk's arm and Thor's leg or whatever, and it's like, how would the world react? You know what I mean? Now their superhero team is dead, and how would the loved ones of the different heroes react? And it's and basically there's an attack on Washington, and our main character has to decide whether he can be the hero he once was, because he was a chameleon, and now only this part of him is him. So it's like, what's the point? His power doesn't work, and then he realizes that the other body parts retained their powers. So now he has offensive capabilities that he never had before. So that's what Discord is. So we're giving away the first issue, for free if you sign up to our what do you call it, mailing list. And then just so you know, Tales of Discord is literally one-shot comics that they're not origin stories of all the different characters from the team from they're important moments in their lives that lead up to the events of Discord. And I had different artists working on each one. So, and they each just tackle different themes and so forth. And what was lovely is the Huffington Post did an article about one of the comics from Tales of Discord, which is about a gay superhero who she comes to terms with her homosexuality while coming to terms with being a hero. And I got so many lovely emails from the gay and lesbian community saying, God, I wish I had a comic like this when I was growing up. And it's really sensitive towards that. And but to me, it wasn't like this. Here's a it's just an interesting character thing, and just telling a relatable story. So it's something I'm very proud of, is especially that comic Iridian from Tales of Discord. But yeah, you can check out. You get a free copy of Discord #1 and also Hired Guns #1 as well. So
and by the way, I just pinned the comment. So if you're watching this, you can go to the top of the live chat, and I also put that on Twitter. So everybody go and get your free copies of those comics, free to download right now.
Great.
People are talking about, J-Pod says that you won them over with FP. I'll have to go through his movies and shorts. FP was right up there for everything I was looking for. Dude seems to really get sci-fi. I guess you really get sci-fi.
Oh yeah, I like that. What do you mean FP?
You're the what is it? The what we were talking about earlier that Yelena did the thing for.
San Francisco?
Oh, they're talking about Forbidden Planet. That's what they're talking about. I guess they're not talking about you, but he does say you get sci-fi. Maybe they're talking about Renee Laloux. I thought they're talking about you. But you know what? We both love Forbidden Planet.
Oh yeah.
I mean, fantastic. Pardon me. Fantastic Planet.
Oh, Fantastic Planet. Oh, I own.
Sound. I don't know why. Everything I just said, I think, was muted. I must have hit something in my reverie.
No.
So we were talking about Fantastic Planet. Let's see.
Is it back on?
Yeah, it's on now. I don't know what I hit. I guess we really were. This really was. You know what that was? That was just a clever ploy marketing device about Paul's book, The Silent Planet, which comes out tomorrow. Which you can get on Amazon. Actually, you could probably get it on Amazon in 15 minutes if you want to stay up and get it. So I apologize. We were talking about Fantastic Planet. I don't know how long there was no sound for, but I apologize. Apparently, you know what? We're talking about Fantastic Planet. I love that movie so much. I don't know what I hit. So whatever we said about.
Boy, we were talking genius.
I know, right? It's just.
But yeah, I mean, like, we're true, like, science fiction fans. I mean, I've been watching Doctor Who since I was, 5 years old, and I own the TARDIS console, which is from the '95 Paul McGann TV movie. It's sitting there in the corner. I have a Dalek over here.
What'd you think of that? The Paul McGann TV movie.
I love it. I thought it was
pretty good. Eric Roberts is the master.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, and like, I'm certainly not going to say anything bad about it anyways, because Matthew Jacobs, he wrote it, is like a good, dear friend of mine. And I mean, his wonderful documentary. By the way, Matthew, all joking aside, and I do love the Doctor Who TV movie. Matthew Jacobs has this wonderful documentary that's been winning tons of like festivals and so forth, and getting like 5-star reviews, called Doctor Who Am I? And it's just talking about his experience, writing Doctor Who and dealing with the fans. And it's a real love letter to science fiction and storytelling and Doctor Who that I highly recommend checking out. It had a theatrical release in the UK, and it's a wonderful, wonderful documentary.
Yeah, no, I mean, now how do you feel about Russell Davies coming back?
Oh, I'm very happy about that. Very happy about that. I want to see what he does. And I love the fact that we're bringing David Tennant back. It's like, what? Look, it's like, let's just see. I mean, like I said, I've been a fan of Doctor Who since I was 5 years old. Look what I just bought. Like, here's on my desk here. This is what I got at the Doctor Who convention. I got my Jodie Whittaker action figure.
That's pretty good. That figure's pretty good.
I got this. Look at this. Companions of the Third and Fourth Doctor. So it's Romana 1, Romana 2, and Sarah Jane. So
wow,
that's what I bought at the Doctor Who convention, because my whole world is toys.
Did you get all the Big Chief Doctor Who 12-inch figures, 6 scale?
No, but I made my own. I made a William Hartnell, John Pertwee, and Tom Baker that I sewed all the costumes for, and I had friends sculpt the heads for me, so I have my own 12-inch of the first 4 Doctors that are really
that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Those figures are.
There's my
I know you're. I've been looking at that all night long. Is that the original Shogun Warrior Godzilla?
Yes, from when I was a kid.
Oh my God! See, because
I got Ray Dean up there.
Yeah, I wanted. They made a Rodan, but it was very limited.
Yeah.
And I used to have Mazinga, and what Jumbo Machiners is what they're called in Japan. The Rotocast stuff.
Can I just show a little bit? Like,
hell yeah! Here, wait, let me go full frame here so people can see it.
Second. I'm so horrible, and I'm a film director, and I'm screwing this up. Sorry.
Your office is so nicely. It's so nicely done. There's Robbie the Robot over there. There's a Dalek. Look, by the way, there's Vincent from the Black Hole. There's IQ9 from Star Blazers.
Yeah, by the way, that
why Vincent, do you have BB-8? Get rid of that shit. Come on, man.
That Vincent was the first thing I ever bought on eBay. That model.
Why do you have BB-8, Paul? Why?
Because it's all robots up there.
Yeah, but BB-8's that's.
Do you want the tour of my office here?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so here's the tour of my office. So, by the way, I have like a little movie theater, so I have like a popcorn machine and I have a candy rack. There's my Morbius that I made from, nice. If you're a Doctor Who fan, Tom Baker. 1 second, moving around. There's my books. There's my Dalek and my Zygon.
Wow.
There's my Robots of Death and Cybermen. There's the TARDIS console. That is the actual prop from the 96. Where's my brain? TV movie with Paul McGann.
Now, did you pay for that or did you pull a heist?
No, I got it for next. And I bought it from the place that actually built it up in Vancouver.
Oh, nice.
They wanted to get rid of it.
Just say you pulled a heist, man. Come on.
That's a real sonic screwdriver there, by the way. You can't really see it that great, but on the wall, and that's the real Doctor's handbag. Then there's my action figures I told you about, those ones that I made.
Yeah, your office is so well organized.
Oh yeah,
mine is not.
Rassilon.
Look at all those Eagles from Space 1999. That's what I'm talking about.
That's actually that was my brother's. He got that for his birthday 1 year.
Wait, you actually have the actual Mattel Eagle from the mid 70s? Is it complete?
Yeah. Pretty much.
I'm gonna pull a heist at your house. I'm gonna steal that.
Got my
You'll know it was me.
Section, got my Star Trek section, my lightsaber, more Doctor Who stuff. So
is that a Master Replicas Enterprise or is that a model? Right up there. That's a model.
That's over there. That's a model. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, all the. By the way, look at over there. Like my friend Seth gave me that Raiders of the Lost Ark. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Diorama thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like dyed-in-the-wool geek here. I mean, that's the thing. It's like
that's a nice. I'm so impressed that your office is so clean and organized. The Robservatory is an ongoing process. I'm hoping that
I gotta fix my camera here. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, this is no joke. You know what I mean? It's like
we're lifers, man. Lifers.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, like, new toys that I just got on my desk here. Actually, my newest acquisition. So I always loved the Thing. So I got the Thing there, and what are my Hellraiser. Huge Clive Barker fan. So actually, one of the short stories that I wrote was in the Midian Unmade, and that's that got nominated for Bram Stoker Award.
Yeah.
I wrote a short story in that, which I'm really proud of, because Clive Barker for me was a big influence. Clive Barker was a big influence on me.
I mean, I was showing it. I don't know why, but my Revenge of the Manitou book never is. I don't know why.
Wow,
dude, come on, man. Wow. from 79. Yeah. Graham Masterton, I always talk about when I was 11 and 12. It's so funny when they talk about banning books, like they're going to rewrite Roald Dahl. I'm like, the horrific shit that I was reading. James Herbert, he wrote The Dark and The Fog and The Survivor and the Rats trilogy. And Graham Masterton, who wrote sex manuals before he was writing horror novels. I was reading at 11 and 12 the most scandalous, horribly violent sex books. I loved it. Yeah. But it's like, and now they're talking about, well, we have to have sensitivity readers. I'm like, my YA fiction was Clive Barker and Stephen King and James Urban. I mean, it is so ridiculous. Like, how have we dumbed down kids so much? Like, it's so weird. I'm like, I want to give the 10-year Rob Burnett's reading list for 10-year-olds. And I'm going to give them all these lurid horror novels, and people can be like, oh, they're just horror. I'm like, you go right ahead and think that.
I'm obsessed with horror, and I'm like one of the most non-violent people you'll ever meet. You know what I mean? But do you remember in Fangoria when Stephen King first started talking about Clive Barker's books of blood and we couldn't get them? Yeah.
They hadn't released them, and I remember they were hideously expensive, and now I wish I still had mine, but they would be even more hideously expensive. But I had the hardcover, the first edition hardcover books of blood that Clive Barker illustrated the covers for.
Oh wow! I thought I had the soft cover ones. That was like
these are the original, the 6 British hardcovers.
Yeah.
And I started reading those. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you actually do me a favor? This is funny for your audience here by TMI. Can I just run to the bathroom just really quickly? Just like you talk to people for a second.
Go right ahead, man.
I'll be right back.
TMI. It's okay. I'm just going to leave. Normally I would go to a single shot of myself, but I keep looking in Paul's background, and I'm like, I covet that Godzilla. You know what? Since Paul is running the bathroom, as you all know on this channel, I read your letters, and I did get a lot of great letters. I get letters. You can go to postgeeksingularity.com, and you can write me a letter, and I will read them. And let's see. I've got. Here's a good question. I like this one. This one comes from Benjamin Blore, or it might be Blore. I don't know. I'm getting it wrong. Dear Rob, it's a warm, sunny day in England. The girlfriend and 10-month-old are fast asleep. And after having taken me nearly 6 weeks to send this email, I finally have time to do so. I'm an indie filmmaker and writer with several short films under my belt, congratulations, and screenplays too. Anyway, why do I tell you this? Because as my subject heading suggests, The X-Files was a major part of my life growing up, which incidentally led me to becoming a filmmaker and writer. After hearing you on the John Campea show and founding your channel, of which I've thoroughly enjoyed so far, you often reference The X-Files, and as a fanboy myself, I thought I would share my thoughts and opinions with you. To start off, seasons 1 through 7 are remarkable television. The acting, the writing, the scores, the direction of the series was incredible. The mythology episodes, the alien conspiracy storylines had you hooked week by week. and their cliffhangers nail-biting. Some major stars contributed to the series too, with some up-and-coming having their big breaks, i.e. Jack Black in Season 3's DPO. David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson were fantastic, and their chemistry shone through, truly believing that they really did care for each other, and eventually, in later seasons, falling in love. The supporting cast excelled too. Mitch Pileggi, William B. Davis, John Neville, Nicholas Leah, and Nicholas Leah's Krycek, to name a few. I also love the episodes featuring the lone gunman. The only episode I hated was during Season 9 when they, spoiler, killed them off. I think I'm in the minority when I say I really enjoyed the departure seasons 8 and 9, and reveled in the introduction of Robert Patrick's Special Agent John Doggett. Not so fond of Gish's portrayal of, as I like to say, that's not the letter writer, that's me, the lovely Agent Reyes. I'll finish this up with a few standout episodes. This Is Not Happening, Dead Alive, Nisei and 731 from Season 3, Leonard Betts. I could go on and on. Wasn't the X-Files series the first to develop PTS for TV shows? I may be wrong, but it feels like it. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. Regards, Ben Blore or Blore. P.S. Please check out my short film on YouTube. Well, Ben, it's BenBloore. So, Paul, when you were gone, I read letters on the show.
Okay.
Ben writes in from the UK about how much the X-Files influenced him.
Oh, nice.
And I think, I loved the X-Files, but I also think that the X-Files I realized that when we got to the 5th season in the movie, that they didn't know what they were talking about. They had no idea. They didn't understand their own mythology. And I was one of those. I was an X-Files mythology addict. I bought the laser discs. I don't know if you came to Steve Melching's house when we watched a bunch of Myth-Arc episodes before the movie came out.
Yeah, I think I do.
I loved the X-Files. I love the standalone shows. I mean, Die Hand, Die Verletz from the 2nd season with the demonic teacher, like the devil teacher that was in the high school. I loved X-Files. I thought X-Files was...
I love Millennium, too. I actually own Millennium on...
I did, too. I mean, again, I think Millennium, those also suffered from the same things the X-Files suffered from. X-Files suffered from, in that they didn't know where they were going. They didn't...
I worked on Space Above and Beyond.
Which was another Fox show, a spinoff, with... And you had, of course, our favorite X-Files writers, Glenn Morgan and James Wong.
Yeah.
Morgan and
Wong.
Wong.
I'm sure they're going to remake. They're talking about remaking that.
I know, which they should, and finish it. It was only 1 season.
Yeah.
But what did you think? I mean, I love the X-Files. I mean, the first season is really weird. It's a really weird season of TV. It's a great horror show. They were trying to remake kind of Kolchak the Night Stalker. I mean, Darren McGavin came back. But they did a lot of things. They did a lot of UFO stuff. I mean, they had that transgender episode. It was actually called Gender Bender, about the guy who could change genders, and then you had Tombs, and then of course the last episode of the first season was the Erlenmeyer Flask, which was the first Myth-Arc episode. But what did you think of X-Files? Were you a fan?
Well, I got into X-Files a little late, which is weird for somebody because I was obviously...
I did too. I caught up. Yeah. I didn't get into it until the repeats in the summer, and I really got into it in the 2nd season.
Yeah, for me, it was the 3rd season. And then I went back, I started buying the DVD sets and, started, really deep diving into it. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that show, and it was very influential on me, but I felt that it started losing its way after a while. You know what I mean? It's sort of like the malaise of the fact that it didn't seem to know where it was going at a certain point. It worked itself into sort of a corner, which was a little, especially after the movie came out. Yeah,
the movie told me that it was so weird to me because I had one question. I'm like, okay, so these conspirators that they know the aliens where have these aliens been all this time?
Yeah.
Where are they? Are they on the dark side of the moon?
Yeah.
Are they when they would ask, they'd bring in alien bounty hunters and then the black oil and Where are all these people? Who hires an alien bounty hunter? And I kept asking myself, what do you pay him with?
Yeah.
It's just,
Funny.
I mean, I always wanted to do a short film about who paid the alien bounty hunter. Like, where does he get his money? And
That's
where did,
cool.
he's got his
Yeah.
special shiv that he would stick people with.
Yeah.
And I went with it. I was still up through the 4th season. I thought it was great, but then it spun off into oblivion. And then the super soldiers, because they didn't know what they were going to do with the aliens. I always thought that the X-Files should have ended with it raining black oil. Like, that was the end. The black oil was now raining down from the sky, and everybody was being taken over. And Mulder was sitting there with an umbrella, like on the mall as all of humanity was being taken over, something like that. But
my editor Kevin Ross on Encounter was an editor on the X-Files.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
it was. The show's beautiful. I still love it. I mean, I have the redone Blu-rays for the whole show.
Nice.
Tom Jr. Jackson, our moderator, wants to know if you've watched Picard season 3 and what do you think of it?
The answer would be no, other than on Red Letter Media. I mean, like, here's the
They
funny
like
thing.
it.
Star Trek 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time. It just is. I love it. I love that movie more than anything. I'm much more of a Doctor Who Star Wars person than a Star Trek person. Though I did grow up watching the original series and all of the movies and so forth. And like I said, Star Trek 2 is, I always say it's my second favorite movie of all time. I just love it. I have had no patience for, and I worked on Enterprise. Actually, I built Portos, a fake version of Portos. For this episode called Night and Sick Day.
Very famous episode of Enterprise.
Oh, it is? It's famous?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Because I did build those fake dogs, which I'm very proud of because they look really real. I mean, in my portfolio. I haven't been watching any, like, I couldn't get into Discovery. I couldn't get into...
because it's god-awful.
Yeah, I couldn't get into any of these. I tried watching a little bit of Picard. I'm curious about the new season of Picard, but I hear from some people that it's like, great, it's, we're now, this is all now working now, and now it's worth it for this 3rd season. And other people going, yeah, this is crap and fan service.
No, it's not. It's not crap and fan service. You know what it is? You would really appreciate it. Okay. Because it's all about getting older and where we're at now as opposed to where we were at.
I'm young at heart, Rob.
No, but you're a father. And this has a lot to do with fatherhood and all that. It's really good.
I was thinking about watching the 3rd season. Actually.
And it gets better. Well, listen, man, we've been going for 3 hours. Isn't that crazy? This has been so much fun. I just have to go to bed because I have to get up and go stream with John Campy in the morning.
Nice.
And we have our 8 puppies that were born 3 days ago.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is amazing. So, Paul, before we end this stream, let's remind people why we were here. You have a book coming out today. It's now today. It comes out today.
Oh, yeah.
And that book is The Silent Planet. And here's the book cover. And it's a great book cover. You see the whole planet here. And Paul talked about it, and I'm excited to get this. And it's on Amazon, and people can get it today. Right now. And I want to remind people, I pinned for the live chat, I pinned at the top of this a link. Paul has generously made 2 of his comic books available in digital download form, which you can get right now. So, and because I'm that kind of guy, I'm going to put it in the chat one more time so you don't have to go up. You can just get it right now. There it is. Just put in your email and go buy his book. So
and that's the thing, is like it's reasonably, we really did it reasonably priced. You know what I mean? We want to, we're building a brand. We've got Oren and I have lots of plans coming up and lots of interesting things. And if you're a sci-fi fan and really love science fiction, I mean, I think you'll recognize that this is written by people who really do love and respect the genre and are trying to do new things and do interesting things with it. And we've got a lot of really fun stuff planned that are a lot of interconnected things going to be going on. And as a matter of fact, I'll even say that this movie is actually connected. I'm sorry, the Silent Planet is actually connected to Encounter over this shoulder. Encounter.
Okay, here it is. This is Paul's movie. It stars Luke Hemsworth. It did not win an Academy Award. It won a Saturn Award, which is like an Academy Award if you're a geek. So here's his film, Encounter. It's available on many different formats. You can get it on physical media. You can get it streaming. And it stars Luke Hemsworth.
It's got Tom Atkins. If you guys are, John Carpenter fans, and he won an award at one of the film festivals for Best Supporting Actor. In the movies won, like I said, a lot of, won Film Threat Best Sci-Fi Award, and it's won director.
Yeah, I have one of those. I see your Film Threat Award next year's Saturn Award. Yeah. I got one of those too, which is great.
And this lovely, you can see it next to it, the Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival.
Yeah, which is very cool.
That's right. I love that. It's a beautiful.
It's a beautiful award. And also, I would recommend, even if you're not working in film, this is a great book if you want to understand what a movie set is like. This is the 4th edition of Paul's book, On the Set, The Hidden Rules of Movie Making Etiquette. Many good interviews. It's a really good book. I don't think I have the 4th edition, though. I have an earlier edition. I'll have to. No, man, I got to go buy it. I'll go buy it. You got to buy your friend's stuff. You got to support. But so that's it. And then, of course, you can get his comics. This is one of them, Hired Guns. And you can I just put the link down so you can get that. And another comic that we were talking about earlier. So all of those things. Paul, what do you have coming up next? What's next for you? I know you talk about writing more novels. You want to make another movie? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm up to direct some things, up to write stuff. I actually, like Rob and I talk about being storytellers. I wrote, it's a coming of age drama that we have a really great director attached to it and have an agency behind it. I don't want to go too far into that. I'll talk about that more because I don't, knock on wood. But hopefully that will be going soon. And up to direct a few things. I teach screenwriting and comic books and so forth at New York Film Academy. I do that on the side. And just like you said, just still writing comic books and graphic novels, and more novels on the way, and hopefully more movies on the way.
J-Pod wants to know if there's going to be an audiobook of The Silent Planet.
Yes, there is. There is. As a matter of fact, that is, we were just talking about that today. Oren and I were just talking about that today. And as a matter of fact, I'm also working on a graphic novel version of it as well.
Nice. And also, what streaming service can people see Encounter on right now?
Tubi, Peacock, Amazon Prime, and Sci-Fi Central on YouTube. You can watch it, for free there. They had licensed it, which is wonderful. And it's wonderful being able to share the film. And it's also there's a special edition Blu-ray and a DVD. I used to do Blu-ray, content, special features, and so it's like a deluxe edition of Encounter, which I believe on Amazon right now is at a really good price. It's got a really good discount right now. So I hope that's not an indication of the quality of the movie.
Yeah, Tom Jr. Jackson says if you're on Audible, you already have 2 audio dramas. So, by the way, that you have 2 audio dramas on Audible?
Oh, which ones? I read a lot of stuff.
I don't know, but Tom says
I wrote a Doctor Who audio adventure, which I'm very proud of too.
By the way, someone says that the link to the comics aren't working. It is working. I just checked it. They're there. It's working. I'll put it down one more time.
They might have sent you an email. I know with some of them, because we tested it out before the podcast, with some of them you'll get it directly, and the other ones you'll get an email with a link that you can.
Oh, well, I just put in the link and it takes you right to your thing and it even says promotional sign up. It's all right there, both for Discord 1 and Hired Guns.
Yeah. So, and if there's any problem, we'll make sure you get it. Just email, through my website, paulsalamoff.com. By the way, go to, while you're there, check out paulsalamoff.com. There's lots of, you can see all like the video game stuff I worked on and all the comic books and graphic novels and some movie stuff and other books I've written. But yeah, if for any reason it's not working, please contact me through the website and we'll make sure you get that right away.
Yeah, so you guys have got that, and if you're going to Peacock to watch Encounter, watch Tango Shalom too. It's also on Peacock and streaming on Amazon as well. So check that out. Well, Paul, let me make sure. J-Pod says the two on Audible are Logan's Run Last Day and Hell Comes Hollywood.
Oh yeah, great, yeah. Yeah, I know they did. You know what's crazy? They did, because I've written some Vincent Price Presents, but they did audio books of Logan's Run Aftermath. Oh, there's Logan's Run. These are like,
how cool is that?
Yeah, they're like by a company, so it's like full, like dramatized, like with actors playing the characters. So to have this is awesome. They did audio versions.
Wow, that's dope.
Yeah, and then they did. I write Vincent Price Presents too, and they did one of my stories for Vincent Price Presents, which is good. I did one called Road Rage. So so I've had audio of myself, which is really cool. I mean, it's
now Harris McGrade wants to audition to voice act for the audiobook.
Well, hey, you know what? I'm telling you, reach out to me, okay? Because we have somebody for Silent Planet, but there's we're, like I said, we're planning on trying to do 4 books a year. So if it's possible, we'll see if it's possible. I mean, we can only try, you know what I mean? But we're gonna need people to do stuff like that, and always looking for interesting new talent.
I'm all about that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Paul, I want to thank you for being here on the 835th episode of Robservations.
Wow.
What a great conversation we had. I mean, we geeked out hardcore, and we've had a loyal audience here the whole time, which is good. So that's fantastic. And again, I want everybody to go check out Paul's book, which drops tomorrow. One more time, that is The Silent Planet, which should be available theoretically on Amazon right now. So check it out while you're there. Pick up his book, On the Set, The Hidden Rules of Movie Making Etiquette. And, of course, if you use the link that's pinned at the top of the chat, you can get Hired Guns and one other comic. Chapter 1. You don't get the whole thing. You get Chapter 1. I mean, it's a loss leader, man. You got to buy the rest of the show to find out what happens. Buy the rest of the books.
Yeah.
And Luke Hemsworth, not Liam. Luke, who stars in Encounter, available on many different streaming services, and I have the disc. I have the disc of it, so you can get it on physical media as well. So check that out.
It's been a pleasure, Rob. This has been a pleasure.
Paul, this has been so much fun. I've had such a great conversation.
Yeah.
And I've known each other for 30 years.
I know. Crazy, right?
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
But we're still young at heart, man.
I am. I'm feeling.
I mean, the last couple of years, my hair turned white, but what are you going to do?
I'm still I just got this going here. But I mean, I feel like I've just scratched the surface. And look, the final thing I'd love just to say to everybody is look, I grew up in Massachusetts. I didn't know anybody in the film industry. And, I just had a passion for movies, and especially science fiction and horror, since I was a little kid. And I feel so lucky that I get to do what I love, and it's not lost on me. I mean, that's the thing, is I've had a really wonderful, 34 years so far in this business, and I'm looking for hopefully that many more. And I still love movies as much as, I did when I was a kid. And that's the thing, is don't ever become cynical, and don't ever give up your dreams. Why? You know what I mean? If you get only one shot at this, then better make the most of it, and, do what you love. Do what you love.
I mean, what else are we going to do? We have no choice. We're lifers, man. We can't go anywhere.
And that was the thing. So, it's really to pull this right back. Sorry, I'm just gonna, because I love setoffs and payoffs. You did talk about, that at the very beginning, about you worked with a lot of people that said, I'm just gonna wrap it up. And you know what I always say to them? Say, and do what? And do what? You know what I mean? It's like I never had a plan B. That's why I love the movie Gattaca so much.
Right.
It makes me cry when that. I'm just going to say this thing where he's got his brother, and he's like, his brother is genetically advanced, and they always do this thing where they swim out, and he would always beat him. He would always beat his genetically advanced brother, and he would say, "How did you do that?" And he goes, "Because I never left any for the swim back." And I'm like in chills just saying that line.
I
never
know.
Left any for the swim back, and that's for me. It's like it's always been just keep on moving forward. Don't let anybody take your dreams away, and know that like, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. And it's like, and don't lose yourself. Don't become cynical. I'm like the most uncynical person you'll meet. And trust me, I have lots of reasons to be cynical. But I'm not.
Yeah, me too. Well, I mean, I'm very cynical when it comes to Star Trek, but other than that, I mean, I'm still having a great time, and I still love. I mean, dude, I'm building a 4.5 foot long model of the space battleship Andromeda with its 2-wave motion guns.
Oh, God,
It's
I love that shit.
unbelievable.
By the way, not show that we're, not full of shit and stuff like that. I gave my graphic novel, the guy who's doing, the graphic novel, the designs for the graphic novel for Silent Planet, I gave him pictures of the Paladin and a couple of other ships that I'm like, this is sort of, like these ships from Star Blazers, Space Cruiser Yamato, are sort of what I have in my head a little bit.
And I have to say, if you've never watched Star Blazers, the last 10 years, Space Battleship Yamato 2199, 2202, and 2205 are great.
Great.
They are great.
Great.
And there's a whole new slew of model kits and everything, but
I love those designs. I got my Yamato. I got 2 Yamato models like over there.
yeah, the 3 I've got, the Andromeda, it's 4.5. It's
I want to see it. I love that ship.
It's gigantic, and it all lights up and sound effects, and it's a Partworks kit that was only released in Japan, and I've been working on it for the last 3 weeks.
Please buy my book so I can afford this model.
Yeah, well, you got to get you need a Japanese buyer. They release the parts every week. Wow. I'm getting the one from 2205, the carrier. I'm building the carrier now. It's yeah, man. And the Yamato kit is unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Tell you, Doctor Who and Star Blazers were it for me as a child. Like that's got me, that got me through my high school years.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's funny because I'll tell you something. This is so. We had this.
I know we're supposed to wrap it up, folks.
I know. I got to say one thing. You brought up. So there was this girl that moved to my neighborhood. Her name's Kay Marita, and beautiful girl. And I was like, she should have been my girlfriend, I guess. But she's Japanese, moved into my neighborhood, but her sister still lived in Japan. And I'm like, this is like 83, where they broadcast Final Yamato, or it might have been 80. It was the Final Yamato movie, the 3-hour movie. And her sister taped it on Betamax when it was on Japanese TV and sent it over. And like, Kay got it for me, and she was like translating, and it was still incomprehensible to me. I mean, now I have it on disc, but man, that was great. Thank you, Kay Marita.
And have you've seen the live action one? Have you seen?
I do. I own multiple copies of it.
Yeah, it's good. It's okay. It's okay.
The problem was that they had to change the gamelons. I get it. They couldn't make it look like Avatar had come out a year. I get it. I understand. But there's still a lot of cool shit in it. When the Yamato takes off in live action, and they hired that pop star. He looked like Kodai, or he looked like Derek Wildstar. He looked good. Yeah. There's a lot to love in that movie.
I'm telling you, Rob and I were dyed in the wool like sci-fi fans, and I promise you that when you read Silent Planet, you'll know that it's written by somebody who really loves the genre, who legit loves the genre.
Well, Paul, everyone, I will bid you all farewell. I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank my moderator, Tom Jr. Jackson, who once again is staying up all night long to moderate these channels. I want to say thank you for that. Retro Nerd Girl is here. Hello, Retro Nerd Girl. Always good to see you. And Stixboy73 says the Yamato is awesome, and I love Star Blazers.
Yeah.
So and Retro Nerd Girl says Gattaca reference. Sweet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, what a great movie. And did you get your 4K Steelbook? I do. I have that.
No, not yet.
You got to
yet.
get
I
it.
love
Come on,
that
man.
movie. I love the score too.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, Andrew Nichol, man.
And when are you going to have me back on again to talk about heavy metal stuff?
Oh, well, whenever you want.
Let's talk film scores and heavy metal.
Let's do that. We'll talk heavy metal. You will have to do a midnight metal. We haven't done one in a while.
Yeah.
Come on. We'll do it. All right, Paul, I will see you later, but I will leave everybody with this. Here is the cover of your book. Everybody go to Amazon right now, pick up Paul Salamoff's book. Well, I should say Paul J. Salamoff and Orrin Nichols, the first of their book, The Silent Planet. They're going to be, he says 3 books a year. Come on, Paul. Can you really do that? I don't know. 4 books a year. 4 books a year. All right. If Brandon Sanderson can write 4 books during a crowdfunding campaign, I believe you can. Everybody, as you know, one last time, I will say this. Every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And that story is The Silent Planet, now available on Amazon. And with that, have a better night. Now we can. No, it's all good. No, I just had to